Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack here at the Irish Hotspur, and this is going to be your therapy session, your fan show. Please, everybody, come on, have your say, talk it out with me because not only was it a very disappointing result, it's kind of a confusing game, I think, to really grasp and really to understand. I'm hearing lots of people, of course, being very frustrated with Ange, how he set up the team, maybe the players and personnel that he went with. Also, as well, just the manner of the performance where Spurs were kind of, doing well, but also still showed kind of the same sort of problems, the same sort of tendencies that have undone us, I think, in a lot of games, kind of not really learning from mistakes, of the past of this season. So, everybody, please feel free, come on, have your say. It's good to see plenty of you guys in the house and plenty of you guys in the chat already. We already do have a decent queue of the regulars, but would love to see anyone wants to make a debut. Dave will not be joining me. He's still making his way back from London and still probably grieving in some stage, having to make the journey over. I'm glad that he was still able to see two goals go in, but I bet that was probably hard to take, the manner in which Spurs did go down so easily. And like I said, despite, at least in my opinion, playing quite well. I do have plenty of questions, plenty of talking points that we can go through here. I'm going to get to some of the chat first, just say hello to some of the people that are joining us quickly. And then I'm going to get to some of the questions, and then we're going to get to the queue, though. If everyone can, though, if you haven't already, smash the like button for us. Like I said, feel free to grab a membership and come on and join us and have your say. We have the one and only, though, Mark New in the house. We have Gamer16. We're going to start with Gamer16. Afternoon, guys. The game actually showed us how close we are. Jimenez in, plus a different approach on set pieces, plus focus on the game and not on winning with the ref, forgetting Saka running in behind. I've heard about, Santiago Jimenez. Is that who people are talking about? Has been spotted in a press box. Adrian Troca saying, "Good afternoon, David and Jack." David, good to meet you at the stadium yesterday. Hope the result didn't spoil your experience too much. David is still making his way back here, Mr. Adrian Troca, but I'm glad that you did get to run into him. And anybody who ran into Dave, tell me how it was. Seeing the man in the flesh. Only even I have seen him only, I think, like 3 times or 4 times, I think, in person at this stage. So even Dave and I haven't even met too often in person. It is nice to see the big man. We have Mark New as well in the house. Good to see Mark New. Big up Dave and Jack. Second half FC fought hard for the comeback. VAR injuries, the Rom bomb. Could have scored a hat trick to seal his legendary status, to be fair. Udoji plus Emma would have got us over the line. Come on, you Spurs. I agree with that, Mark New, but I think we knew that Udoji was going to be gone. I think from the get-go, you had probably heard me, and plenty of people who are members or just in general before the game knew that I was not a big fan of starting Ben Davies in this match. And that was probably a week before this even game had come up. I knew that, it just wasn't a good recipe, to get a result. And I think it did come back to bite us. It came back to bite Ange. I think Emerson is not, a glamorous choice. It's not an ideal choice, but I think would have been a much better choice. But we'll get into that. I have plenty to say on that. That is going to be one of my questions. Big up to you, Mark New. And Paul Connor, like I said, I do apologize. Normally, I would like to run it on time, but I do actually have an engagement later this evening. It's actually a beautiful, beautiful sunny day in Brooklyn. No wind, no, rain or anything in the forecast. Nice and hot, kind of how I like it as well. So luckily, I did kind of make an engagement later this evening, and it's kind of a beautiful day, I think, in my opinion, to forget about Spurs. So I'm going to do this nice therapy with you guys. Get a little therapy out myself, of course, having, someone else talk for once and someone else, kind of explain what had happened in that North London derby. But yeah, it's unfortunately, kind of just due to, kind of circumstances. And with Dave, right, I think as well, he's still making his way back from the plane. I just had to run it an hour earlier. So I do apologize, Paul Connor. And hopefully, if you can't get off work early, you can join me. But we'll try to make it up to you in some way, my man. MV Joker Davis, he says, "What you think about Santiago Jimenez being at the North London derby in an executive box?" I'm assuming that's who you guys mean. I'm excited to hear that Spurs are looking at strikers and Spurs are already having those conversations. Is Santiago Jimenez really high up there on my list? I'm not so sure. I don't necessarily, don't like him. I do like him, and I think he is an exciting player. It's just that I think with players from the Eredivisie at this stage, it does seem like, they are much more hit and miss than other players. We look at, people who were raving over, signing Anthony, the supposed, wonder kid from the Eredivisie. And, he's shown to be probably championship standard, I think, type of winger. Even a guy that I really liked, Cody Gakpo, who is, I still think, a great player, has still taken time, I think, to adjust to Liverpool in the Premier League. I think he's probably Premier League standard, but has been nowhere near as good as even I thought he would be in kind of going in. And so it's, always a risk, I think, with players from the Eredivisie. And also we've had already kind of in the past, I think, our blunders with them. I think Steven Bergwijn is an example. You also look at, of course, the one and only Vincent Janssen, as a former kind of striker target man. I think Jimenez, though, is in the right mold and is in the kind of the right idea where he's aggressive, works hard, big, tall striker who is good in the air and has that sort of, I think power to his game. Where when running at you, he is a fearful player. And I do love Mexican food, and I would love to have more reasons to celebrate with Mexican food after a win. If we have Santiago Jimenez in the team, MV Joker Davis. But big up to you, and I do appreciate your support as a member. D Sinclair's in the house as well. Good to see you. Big Pants is in here. Floyd Jennett as well. We also have the one and only Ed Sweeting. Big up, Dave and Jack. Hope you're well. Big problems, but need people to stop throwing in the towel. Let me know what you mean by that, kind of Ed Sweeting. Do you feel like certain players gave up in this game, or heads were dropping, people started to turn on each other? Let me know, Ed Sweeting. I'll try to see if I can pick out another comment from you if you can answer my question on that one. Good to see you in the house as always, though. And King Hoddle saying, I'm 100% behind Ange, but two current elements are not sustainable. One being our aerial set pieces, and two, aerial set piece defending, and two, the ease and simplicity in which we are countered, and the over reliance on Mickey to bail us out. Just quickly, King Hoddle, I agree with some of those concerns, but as much as Mickey Van de Ven does bail us out, right, with those counterattacks that happened towards the end of the game, in behind, we were having to go after the game, and we were having to take those risks to get back into it. Call me crazy. I actually think Romero, kind of, solve more emergencies or put out more fires defensively in that game than I think even Mickey Van de Ven did. Both were brilliant. Both were great defensively. Don't get me wrong, but I actually think there were some moments where Romero, had it not been for his anticipation and his ability to see the danger, right, kind of before it happened, I think we would probably find ourselves even, further down in that game with also the set piece goals that we did end up conceding. Like you're saying, good to see you, King Hoddle, though, as always, sir. And Big Pants saying, please don't sugarcoat this loss with lame excuses. 3 games and no points and 10 goals conceded. Where is the progress? Listen, if anybody agrees with Big Pants here, if your kind of confidence in Ange is completely shot, or even, starting to wane or being questioned here, feel free, come on, have your say, have a conversation with me. That's what it's all for. I certainly don't bite. Dave doesn't bite. We like to have good chats about it. It's really more your time than it really is our time to try to tell you how we feel about things. Of course, as we're welcoming people in and, we're greeting the chat, I am giving my opinion on things. But please, anybody, welcome to come on, have your say, disagree with me, disagree with Dave. Yeah, feel free to come on and express your opinion on it, no matter where you stand on it. Terry Wright's in the house. Really do appreciate you, Terry Wright. Good to see Tottenham LSG as well. Definitely expressing his thoughts on Ange. And Lappers82, thinking that this exact show is going to happen again after Chelsea. I certainly hope not. We also have Rex Adar, Rakdos Madness, Alan. Feel free to come on and have your say. I know it's kind of already a little earlier in the day than usual for these fan shows, but I do appreciate your support. Alan, hopefully you're keeping well. Sebas Wolf, big up, man. Member for 14 months. Trust the process, Ange. Come on, you Spurs. Sebas, need to have that beer soon, my man. Need to have that beer soon. A therapy beer on me. Feel free, Sebas. Let me know what you're doing this week. Text me, man, because it's been a while. And I'm happy to hear that you and I are at least in a similar space when it comes to Ange. Even if you disagreed with me, I would still love to have a good catch up with you and see where you're at with Spurs these days. And I do appreciate your support for all these months, my man. And I'm with Ange at this moment in time. Believe me, I have my concerns. I have my problems, with recent events and, kind of continual, ways that, or the same problems kind of occurring. But if we're going to continue to just sort of hold managers to such a high standard as I think we have as Spurs fans, I think we're not going to really go anywhere. Of course, we're not making the decisions. I kind of, find that always silly when people seem to think that the fan base makes such a huge impact on the actual decisions made by the football club. But really, I think this fan base needs to try to find some sort of, patience. And it's hard to ask Spurs fans for patience. I get that. But we need to find, that sort of, I think, patience within ourselves to back some manager of some kind, to get to some success with Spurs, because it's not going to happen overnight, especially with a club like ours. It's not going to happen overnight. I think we've never been that sort of side, nor do I think we really ever will be that sort of side, to get instantaneous trophies. I think we even tried that with Jose and Conte, of course, never really gave them, I think, the proper tools or even the proper patience as fans. So we have to back somebody. And I think Ange is that man right now. But Sebas, would love to have good rants with you sometime in the future, sir. Big up to you. Lisa O is in the house. Good to see you as always, Lisa. Good afternoon, Jack. Second half mentality, good to come back, but Ange not particularly concentrated on set pieces. Very concerning, definitely. And Phil Coys says, evening, Jacko. Well. Set pieces once again, selecting Ben Davies at left back and not playing Dragusin for set pieces was a bad decision, in my opinion. I put that result on Ange yesterday. I know what you mean with kind of, some of the decisions that Ange made. I think it made, our lives a lot harder with Ben Davies. And also it does seem like the ignorance to, at least looking at set pieces differently or approaching them differently has come back to haunt us. But I don't even think it's really all on Ange, even with some of the defending of these. Clearly, I think some of our players really lack that bravery and lack that sort of conviction themselves to actually even challenge. I mean, I'm a Yank, Phil, and I feel like I could jump up for some of these headers just to, pose a bit of a challenge. I mean, sometimes these guys are not even bumping them, not even giving them, a bit of hassle, on their way to try to jump. It's really that pathetic to watch. Just everybody is ball watching. And I don't think that's entirely on Ange when you just see everybody kind of just glued to the ball in the air, kind of like goldfish, really just staring at it. It really was kind of pathetic. And it's happened a lot this season, and I really don't get it. David Granola says, pick up Jack. Yesterday was a school day. Sadly, we got schooled, didn't play badly, but they were ruthless in taking their chances. Roll on Richie, getting back to fitness. Apologies for the honking on the outside here, everybody. It's just the continual annoyance of New York. We have Steve D in the house as well saying, hey, Jack, mantra still not changed. This season is about next season. Listen, Steve, hopefully you appreciated my little rant for a second there about Ange and why we should be keeping him. And I never really, expected this to be much of an eventful or really memorable season, right? It was going to be more about learning how to iron out kind of the kinks of this Ange ball, figure out which players are good for the long term, which ones are not. And also, figuring out as well, I think, who are the good leaders, who are the guys that really can communicate and execute what he wants, on the pitch. And that's going to take time. It's going to take trial and error. And I was well aware of that and, was well prepared for it. I think, like I've said to you many a times, Ange has been a bit of a victim, I think, of his stellar start that he hasn't then been given, I think, that sort of grace period later on kind of in this season. And he's weirdly paying the price for it. And it seems like, that sort of lack of patience is coming to haunt him here with kind of the fan base, and hopefully not, though, with the actual people who make the decisions at the club. I can understand criticism of Ange. Don't get me wrong. I don't think like anybody's exempt from it, but seriously, I do feel like we have to find that sort of patience within ourselves with some manager. If it's not Ange for you, come on, have your say. But for me, it's just, we have to find that patience with somebody. We have to trust a process of some sort. Big up, though, Steve D. Really have appreciated your support over these weeks and over these various roller coasters. Big up to Reeman's son. Good to see Joseph Cahill, Ryan Gloria. We also have Jackosaurus as well. We have Stefan Blois. Big up to you, Stefan Blois. Haven't said your name in a while, and I bet you were probably very frustrated to see. I know you're not a big fan of Højbjerg, and he came into the team, and I did not feel like he covered himself in glory. And he said, I never like to talk about the officials, but it's hard to ignore them after this game. We never had one call go our way. It was pathetic. No matter how bad we were defensively, we would have still won, or we could have still won. Stefan, I do have a question about that with Michael Oliver. I've grown a bit sort of numb. I've grown a bit like, how do you put that? Yeah, I think that is the right word. I think I've grown a bit numb to just how bad the referees have been in general this season, not even just to us, just in any game that you watch, you just see shocking decision upon shocking decision, or even just referees just kind of just clearly picking when to call a foul and when not to, even when some of the fouls that they're not blowing up for are just blatant assault, really like on a player, and they're just choosing to ignore it for whatever reason. I just don't get it, Stefan. I think the referees in the Premier League are just at such a terrible, terrible standard that I don't really even know where we go from here other than looking to kind of cycle them out. And also as well, probably looking to chop VAR out because it's just so clear that they just don't know how to use it in any proper way. And also what's sad is I'm glad that VAR was there, I guess, to at least give us, the penalty that was so rightfully deserved in the Ben Davies situation. There were so many other fouls as well that were just blown up kind of in regular play by Michael Oliver. There were some that was just so tacky that he was giving to Arsenal, and then some that he wouldn't give to us. It really was infuriating. But like I said, it's just I've grown a bit numb sometimes kind of talking about it at this stage. And Ed Sweden getting back to me later, I think, yes, sorry, Jack. Yes, not the players. They're still fighting for Ange, and some of the fan base who are losing their patience with Ange. It's way too early. I feel the same, Ed. But like I said, I don't think any opinion is correct. When it comes to talking about football, really in general, like for the most part, like we're all just watching a sport. We're all just watching a game. We all have different opinions. We all have different takes from it. Some of us might be, more passionate, more, whatever about a certain thing versus another. But we all just see things, I think, through our own eyes, and I think that's kind of the beauty of it, and that we can have these sort of conversations. So like I said, everybody, feel free to come on, have your say. And Jory, grabbing a fan show membership, been a long time, sir. If you want to come on, feel free to do so, my man. It's good to see you. And it looks like, sorry, I have the screen kind of minimized. Now that I scroll down, I can see that you have joined us in the house. I'll give you an update on the queue, Jory, in just a second here, and tell you what your time frame is looking at. But I do appreciate it, Jory. Thanks for coming on and wanting to have your say. Ian Cook, member for 26 months, says, good evening, Jack. Hope you're doing well. Yesterday was a disappointment, but we move on to the next game. In Ange we trust. I like your mentality, Ian. And like I said, the only reason, and I apologize, people, that I'm running the fan show slightly earlier, is because I do have an engagement later on this evening, and it's such a beautiful day in Brooklyn that I'm actually looking forward, after this therapy session we have with all of you guys, to forget about Spurs very, very quickly. And it was kind of a shame to lose another North London derby at home. It's just the manner in which it happened. It's kind of a confusing game. Felt like we played well in periods. We played far better than we did the last time we lost at home under Conte, right, in this fixture. So it's a confusing one to try to address. It's a confusing one to try to have our say on, and definitely bring on the Joracle later, like people are saying. Just to rattle through some of the topics, just to remind you guys, I'm going to go through them quickly because we already have a nice and healthy queue. Were Spurs unlucky, in your opinion, or were maybe these goals that we scored in the second half kind of just papering over the cracks, and were we kind of really due a thumping? And do you feel like kind of your confidence in Ange is starting to wane really after that North London derby result? And also talk about if you feel like, Spurs and reluctance to improve on defending set pieces, where you having an issue with some of Ange's quotes, kind of feeling like they're not as big of an issue as maybe some of the fans and some of the spectators might have thought. He seems to think it's not as big of a deal as maybe you or I might think it is. So let me know your thoughts on that one. Also, Ange's choice to play Davies at left back. I have heard, plenty of people say, oh, with, the benefit of hindsight, everybody's saying, don't, he shouldn't have played Davies. I had said like weeks ago, before the game had even, gone on, not to play Davies. So let me know what your thoughts are on Ange's choice to play him there. Højbjerg instead of Basuma, right? Let me know your thoughts on that one. Bentancur instead of Sarr. Our record with Sarr in the team is so much better than it is without, and that was also maybe a bit of a risk for Ange to take. Madison, is he frustrating you as he is me? I feel like Madison is just continuing to show me, that he needs to just improve, and he's nowhere near what he was in the beginning of the season. And I'm kind of I get a little frustrated because I watch every other English number 10 in the Premier League just seemingly having better games and better form towards the tail end of this season. And it does frustrate me. It's kind of more out of jealousy, really. I'm just seeing players like Eze tearing it up at the end of the season, or Gibbs White, Foden, people like that. And I feel like Madison really isn't doing it. And also another two quick questions here. Romero, terrific performance. One of the actual positives, I think, from the game. He had a terrific game, I think, defensively, as I brought up earlier, in possession, really great passing out from the back line, and also showed that bravery, I think, that, was needed when times are tough and when you are down in these difficult situations. I think Romero just showed so much bravery. Michael Oliver, as we brought up, I think with Stefan Boys, let me know what your thoughts are on him with Michael Oliver as well. Big up to Ian Cook. And before we get started, just quickly, big up to Jason Bell, member for 31 months. You and Ian Cook, you absolute legends, supporting this channel. Honestly, longer than even I have probably been on this channel. And Jason Bell saying, big up, Jack. Yeah, Madison has been disappointing. I still wish we had gotten Eze instead. Jason, I mean, you've been with us a very long time. You probably know that I was a huge Eze fan. And I think originally I might have even preferred, Eze when we had these conversations way back in the past, Eze over Madison. I think we knew Eze was going to be more expensive. So there was that to consider and that to deal with. But Eze, for me, I do feel like he is a terrific player. He has such great dribbling, such great ball carrying, and also has, I think, that almost, kind of invention, in his ability, in the final third, more than even Madison does sometimes. He just comes up with different ways to play a pass or different ways to get around his man, kind of in a more kind of just crazy and kind of unimaginable way I think Madison has, and also maybe has more consistency at least than I don't even know if I could say that actually, because Eze seems to have a lot of problems with injuries, and we know Madison's had a few problems with injuries. It's just that right now, when you do watch the two players, I think you would know which player would be thriving more in this Ange Postecoglou system, and it does feel like Eze would. And also in tight areas where he just has players surrounding him, trying to cause him trouble, just the tight, close control and lovely feet that Eze can have, I think is also really impressive and really good. But yeah, everybody, I think we're going to get things started. Once again, really appreciate to Ian Cook as well as Jason Bell supporting the channels for as long as they have. And we're going to get things started. Dermatron is coming up first. Joracle, I'm going to give you a heads up on the order here in the chat, and we're going to get things started. Please, everybody, if you can, smash that like button, and feel free to get your comments in. Feel free to ask Dermatron what you would like to say, and any other member that's coming on and having their say, what you feel like is on your mind. Let's bring him in here. Hey, John.
How are you?
On my headphones, sorry.
Look, I'm not angry, I'm sad. And it's a weird feeling because I thought I'd be angry after that yesterday. But I sort of woke up feeling a little bit sad. We played well.
Is that because of the manner in which Spurs, kind of just gave up the game so quickly?
Yeah, I think so. The first half was... It was full of mistakes. Ben Davies wasn't in the right position for Saka's goal, but a lot went against us as well. The refereeing decisions, mistakes, and it's all about taking chances. If you take it, I've said this before, Jack, on here many of time to you and Dave. If you take your chances in the Premier League, you will win Premier League games. If you don't, the other team will take theirs and they will win. And Højbjerg, as much as I love Højbjerg, as much as I think he's a great player, what the hell was he doing with that own goal? Seriously.
Yeah.
I
said during the watch along, Dermot, that we already had no confidence going in with set pieces. What Højbjerg sort of did there, it made it probably even worse for the rest of the team, because that's the worst thing I think you could do from your first set piece, to defend. And he ends up hitting a bullet header, great finish from Højbjerg into his own net. And I think that's just, the recipe for disaster for future, set pieces afterwards. Just makes everybody else nervous. Really poor for him.
It is. And look, for me, I came on Friday with my pre-match prediction and with that big motivational, we're going to win. And I thought even yesterday, 3-0 down. And when we came out, we got the first goal. I thought, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. We could do something here. And then the second goal went in. And I thought, hang on a minute. And I put up accidentally on my scoreboard 4-3 Tottenham, which was pure accidental. And I was thinking, it's the comeback on. And even that 3-3, I would have been delighted with that performance. I'm just sad. It's just stupid mistakes. It's frustration. I think more than anger. I think that's what it is with me. But look, what can you do? You just have to move on. I do trust Ange still. I do believe in him. I do believe in what he's trying to do. I do believe he is the man to take us forward. He's the man to take us to the promised land. And I will back him all the way. I'm not one of these fans that are now Ange out at every opportunity. I'm still Ange in. And I don't know why we're having this conversation in only 7 months of him being in the job.
Do you feel like, though, that there's, decent reasons, though, for people to be upset with Ange after this weekend? I think 2 of them being the set pieces, just clearly not addressing them and not doing much about it. And I think even maybe his response also just didn't really help him or do him any favors. I think after the game, one being asked about the set pieces, but also certain players that he decided to back and certain players that he decided to pick, right? He went with Højbjerg, had a shocker of a game. I'm a big Højbjerg fan, but I've been saying for the past few weeks, don't really see the need of him starting games because we know where he's headed. He's out the door after this season. His head and mind, he's a professional, but his head and mind are elsewhere. And we also know that a guy like Basuma is probably for the long term someone who's better to breathe that confidence into instead of just giving Højbjerg the go for a 1-out game. That seems silly to me.
I was guilty of putting Højbjerg in my starting 11. I mean, I did 2 predicted lineups. In my first one, I went with Van der Ven as left back and put Rudu in the centre of defence. And stupidly, I went with the other predicted lineup I did, and looking back at it, I wish I never did. But Davis, for me, was at fault for everything yesterday. He was out of position for Saka's goal. I don't know why he keeps picking players like that. Does he not trust players? Does he not trust Van der Ven to do a job on the left? Does he not trust Rudu enough to play him in centre back? Look, Ben Davies, as you know as well as I do, you and Dave have been banging on this for months, that Davies is part of that group that let us down again and again and again. He's not the worst of the lot of them, but he's near enough there.
I don't even know if it's a mentality thing with me for Davies in this game. It's just surely a quality thing. I think his days as a left back have been numbered for a long, long time. And with also the demands of what Ange expects out of his fullbacks, it's not any easier or something. And he's not going to be able to do it for me defensively. I think he got exposed on that goal because the way in that race. But then also he doesn't really, I think, go about it in a clever way where he could have, with Van de Ven, maybe have caught. Actually, it was a very easy moment just to stop yourselves, and they probably would have caught him, with his momentum going forward, and would have been an easy offside trap. But times in the season, I've noticed that Ben Davies, because he doesn't have the pace, doesn't back himself, I think, to do that offside trap. So he is again a reason to not have at such a crucial position like that, the left back. It just made more sense for me if we're going to go for somebody who can't do anything in the forward area, might as well be Emerson, because Emerson will at least have that athleticism to track back, try to give Saka more of a challenge. Then, too, I think Emerson has shown to be more disciplined in holding that line and being good in holding that defensive line than Davies has this season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I watched him play against Brighton. I was there for the game, and he was awful that day. He did not track back. He was not good at all. Look, we got to move on from this. It's a game that we did not want to lose, but we did lose. But we just got to move on. We've got to look ahead. We've got a game on Thursday. We've got Chelsea away. It's another massive game. And to be honest with you, Jack, everyone seems to come out of the woodwork when Tottenham lose. Everyone seems to come out, Ange out, Ange this, Ange that. And when Tottenham,
you don't think it was boiling over before this game? I had felt like it was kind of boiling already up kind of a bit before this game. And now I think people have more reasons to question Ange afterwards, because, this is a game where you can either shut up a lot of the haters or shut up a lot of the doubters, or you bring on even more criticism and even on more kind of doubt your way.
Do you know, what did they want? Who did they want? If they want Ange out, who did they want in? We got rid of... I did a pre-record earlier with Philip, and he's got the 4th best win ratio out of 10 Tottenham managers in our history, out of the 35 games. He's got a better win ratio than Jose Mourinho, Conte, who were world-class managers who were coming here to win us everything. One manager got the sack 6 days before final. I still do not know to this day why he got the sack. And another manager walked out because he thought he was doing us a favour. Ange's come in. He's got rid of players we've been trying to get rid of for bloody years. He's building the squad. We had a great start to the season. Then we had a rake of injuries. Then we had a bit of ups and downs. This season was always going to be a season of getting ready for next season, of trying to get it right, getting the right players in. There was going to be bumps. I mean, there was going to be bumps along the road. Of course there was. Of course we were going to lose games. But we had people saying we're going to end up in the relegation zone if we sell Harry Kane. We're not going to qualify for Europe. We're 1 win or 2 wins away from qualifying for the Europa League. We're still in the fight for the Champions League, which I don't think we'll qualify for, but technically we're still in that fight. So what did these fans want? What do they want? And we have to get behind the manager sooner or later. So why not get behind Ange? He's the one.
Well, it seems like what Spurs fans, or at least the doubters of Ange, want is a more pragmatic, a more plan B type of manager, whatever that might mean as, a plan B. But they do feel like Ange is so set in his ways that it's ended up leading to his own downfall. Would you agree? Like, he's too set in his own ways. He's too
No,
stubborn.
I don't, because I've seen a lot of them up in Celtic, and that's my advantage. I know what Ange can do, and everyone's saying, do you know, everyone's saying it's the Scottish League, but Ange is a winner. He will win at Tottenham, and I don't get it. I don't get what fans want. I don't. We're never happy. We're never happy. We're either moaning about one thing or moaning about Levy. Now we're moaning about Ange. So what do we want? We might as well get behind this manager, give him all our support, back 100%. Then if it doesn't work by the end of next year, then if you have to sack him, sack him. But he wanted 3 transfer windows. The summer's his 3rd transfer window. We've got to give him that. We're in the Europa League place. And people in the chat that are saying to me that I'm talking shite, you lot can go and pee off, because it's my opinion and I'm going to stick to it. I'm Ange, I support Ange, and I will do all the way to the end. And we can get Champions League football. Football's a funny game. How many times, Jack, have we seen games where the year we got Champions League football, when we were well out of it under Conte's first season, we ended up getting Champions League football that season. So football is a funny thing. So, but there you go.
And Dermotron, any kind of comments on the referee or kind of the offside goal? Do you have any strong opinions about that?
The referee I thought was dreadful yesterday. I really thought, I mean, not to give the penalty when he was looking straight at it to begin with was diabolical. The offside, look, you can look at it one side he's on and you can look at another side he's off. So, look, it's one of them things. I think he was onside personally myself. But, look, at the end of the day, we've lost to Arsenal. And there's nothing we can do about it. We move on and we go against Chelsea on Thursday.
Sounds like you do want to move on very quickly from it, Dermotron. You want to quickly forget about it. So what are your thoughts about the Chelsea? How are we going to do against Chelsea? Last question.
Look, I'm always an optimistic. I'm a delusionist. You know me, Jack, more than anyone. I think we'll win. I think we're going to win every game, to be fair. But no, I think if we can play like we did against Arsenal, and take the good parts out of that game and iron out the bad parts, then I think we should beat Chelsea. Chelsea are there for the taking in the way too. They're not having a great season. So I think, look, I reckon it'd be a draw at the end of the day myself. Be a 1-1 draw. So
that'd be interesting, because both defenses I really don't rate at this stage. Yeah. I'd be surprised if they were able to keep it down. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up getting Champions League football this season, to be fair. No, I mean, this season's been remarkable in one ways and a few other ways, you know. But look, thanks to you and Dave for doing all you're doing. I spoke to Dave earlier and we had a good chat about the game, so we sort of see it from the same point of view. But look, I tell us about final thoughts, Dermotron, and then tell us about the channel as well, sir.
I hate losing any game when Tottenham lose, but I desperately hate losing the North London derby. I hate it so much. It hurts like hell. But look, we can't do nothing about it. We have to move on. We've got Chelsea coming up, and then we've got Liverpool away on Sunday. These next 2 games are going to be very defining in our season. And what happens to Ange and what happens to us. So, look, in Ange we trust.
Yeah, in Ange we trust. He's got to turn things around, I think, for the sake of his own kind of reputation right now with the fans. It looks like very, very divisive, very contentious. But everybody, check out THFC Till I Die, please. Great channel, great man over here. And Dermotron, want to see you next time. Hopefully we can be celebrating a good Chelsea result.
Yeah, hopefully. But look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but support the team and support the manager. That's all we should do. Everything else, forget about it. Let's get behind the boys. 3 points on Thursday is badly, but get over to THFC Till I Die. We're on our march to 2K. Thanks, Jack, again, and I will see you during the week, sir.
See you during the week. Alrighty.
See you later.
Have a good one, Tron. Have a good rest of your evening.
You too,
see you, my man.
Bye-bye.
Big up to Dermotron. Please, everybody, check out THFC Till I Die. Show that lad some support. Nearly at 2K. We have Lazy 8 joining us. He was at the game. Nick was member for 33 months. Looked like the pre-match buildup was a success as well, Nick. I like the venue, like the microphones, your choice of Phil Coys as well to join you. Good man there. Well done to you, sir. And he says, was in the club shop today. All that Aussie merch there tells me that Ange isn't going anywhere soon. And I'm happy with it. Give him time to fix the issues. I would take also the same conclusion there, Nick. Maybe some of the Ange doubters would think that they're just trying to sell all the merch now as soon as possible before they were to, maybe give him the sack. But I do feel like Ange is a guy that's also in a better way actually than Jose and Conte has handled the pressure and has handled some of the criticism, some of the questions from journalists, just from the general media itself. I think he's shown a bit more class and some more composure than what Jose and Conte really ever did with Spurs. I think what was part of their problem is when they went through tough times like this and times when they were starting to get questioned and there were some doubts, they kind of made it worse with either their kind of, in Conte's case, blowing up, at some various stages, or kind of speaking those sort of kind of riddles where it felt like he was saying, something offhanded or saying something, with some type of, real malice, towards the club or towards the ownership or whatever, without really saying, or he would kind of hint at it. And it just made things slightly toxic. And Jose sort of similar, where he liked to kind of speak in more riddles or had this sort of kind of, unnecessary need to put down players or put down others in the team. And even though I was kind of big fans of theirs and still am really to this day, I felt like, what Spurs have always needed is a guy who can kind of deflect a bit of that, kind of criticism, deflect a bit of that sort of, doubts, and be able to internalize it or take it his own way. And I think he's done well with that. So, Ange, for me, I think he is sticking for a while, and I hope he really looks and learns from this period, this tough real period here, Nick, and everybody who enjoyed the pre-match build-up on the game day. Even though you might not have enjoyed the result, if you did enjoy that pre-match build-up, that is thanks to the one and only Nick here. Did a great job in setting it up with Dave. So big up, Nick, and member for 33 months, you absolute legend. Like I say with many others, feel like you guys have been here even longer than I have. Big up to you, Nick. Do appreciate you, sir, and hopefully you have safe travels on your way back home. And don't get too crazy in the club shop, because you need to remember you need to save some room in that suitcase, sir. Big up to you, my man. And we're going to keep things moving, though. We're going to bring on another great person, break down this confusing result and confusing time. Brad Matthews, bring him on here, man on the blue sofa. Hey, Brad.
Hello, Jack. Hello, Jack. Hello, everyone in the chat. And a big hello to Nick as well. I do apologise for not recognising you yesterday. He came up to, and I've met him before. He came up to me and go, "Oh, hi, Brad. How's it going?" I go, "Oh, good, thanks." And your name was again? He goes, "It's Nick." And I'm like, "Oh, right, Nick. Okay, yeah."
Yeah, he's more handsome in person than he is on screen. But Brad, I mean, I don't know. I didn't go into the game with a ton of confidence. How do you think Spurs measured to your expectations going into that game? Did they really fall short of it, or was this kind of a result that maybe you had in the back of your head?
I didn't expect us to win. I'll be honest with you. I sort of predicted a draw. It sort of went how I thought it would go in the early stages. That we had a lot of the possession, and I actually said to the guy sitting next to me, I said, "Oh, you know what's going to happen? We're going to have all this football, and then suddenly we're going to concede from a corner." And that's exactly what happened. And the fact that we conceded from two hi Derek, the fact that we conceded from two corners makes it even worse. So yeah, I thought we had a lot of possession yesterday. We were didn't create many chances, but I don't think we were totally outplayed by Arsenal. And I think 3-0 at half time probably did flatten them, because they had literally 3 attacks and scored with 3 attacks. So we've got issues to solve there. I mean, let's get on to this. We have got issues we need to solve before before we start playing next season. But all this talking, in the chat and in Twitter and on social media about let's get rid of Ange. It's just silly. It's just silly. Yeah, it's fine to criticise him. Of course it is. I've criticised him myself, but yeah, I think it's too early to start throwing the towel in, as I think it was Ed said that, didn't he? Throwing the towel in. So, but I thought
the honeymoon period is well and truly over, though. You can tell with Ange, and that's, of course, I agree with you, though. I think there can be that balance that can be found where if you find yourself to be a huge Ange doubter, I just think maybe give him that don't even need to be benefit of the doubt, just surely that patience, right, of till the end of
Yeah.
this season. Because how much harm is he really going to cause, right, in the end of this season when it really comes? He's going to finish fifth, maybe finishes sixth, but that's what I think is kind of delusional, is to expect Man United or Chelsea or any of the teams below us to go on a miraculous run. There's a reason they're down there to begin with. It's because they're actually more inconsistent than even we are
Yeah.
in this
Yep.
season. But I think you have to kind of give Ange till the end of the rest of the season, and then give him the first 10 games, 15 games, how most clubs do in the next season. If he fails and, we're seeing something similar, then I think definitely,
Well,
far more
yeah.
questions can be raised. And
Yeah. I mean, I
what's
think I said
harm is he going to do for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I said last week that I mean, I'll judge him at the end of next season. Well, we'll not even judge him, just have an opinion on his management style, on how well we've done. As I keep saying on the show, time after again, I predicted mid-table finish, and we're 2 wins away from finishing at least fifth. So,
Mhm.
I think that's not a bad season. I'm relatively happy with how the season's gone.
Mhm.
Yesterday was basically a perfect storm of everything that could go wrong went wrong. We had the VAR against us. I'm not saying that it's wrong for that offside, but it's that 3 inches offside, which I hate anyway. That the fact that you can bring it down to that. So any other day he's onside. You had
Yeah.
the ball deflecting off 2 Arsenal players, and because apparently they didn't deliberately do that, it's not classed as it's still classed as offside. So
Mhm.
then we had the 2 set pieces that we not only from 1 set piece that we conceded, but we conceded from 2. We've conceded against West Ham, we conceded against Everton for set pieces. It's just all the things that could go wrong yesterday went wrong, and we have to definitely look at these issues. People are moaning about the zonal marking. Well, I don't particularly like zonal marking, but if you look how Arsenal set up for their corners, from when they have a corner, and if you went man for man marking, there'd be all these players outside the 6-yard box, because that's where they
Yeah.
start from. So I
Yeah.
don't know. So, and Conte, that great defensive coach, he used zonal marking. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Either you either use it properly or you don't. But
On set pieces, though, Brad, do you feel like the way I've drawn it is, I think part of it is on Ange for how he has either maybe just not addressed it at this stage, or even I don't think he helped himself out too much or did himself any favors really with kind of the dismissing of the question
yeah,
when
yeah,
asked about it after the game. I thought that was a poor choice. But
yeah,
you feel like some of it, though, is also just on the players. Like, I'm looking at guys that are just actually just watching the ball like over their
yeah,
head. They can well and truly jump for it. It doesn't have anything even to do sometimes
yeah.
with zonal marking. We're that poor. We're that pathetic from defending these. I mean, I don't even think we're at the stage of teaching zonal marking. I'm just talking about basic jumping and rising up for a header and clearing it away.
Exactly.
And even I
Yeah,
said during the watch long, I was like, can I just see somebody just at least push a guy before he even jumps?
yeah,
Just at
yeah.
least bump him, make it somewhat hard for him. You see Arsenal players like just jumping, like, with
Yeah.
nobody even making any, life difficult for them. That has nothing to do with zonal marking. That's just giving it down. That's just like kind of giving
I
any
mean,
sort of effort. I mean, that's what's sad is, does Ange have to teach that? I don't think he does. That's a
well,
lot
I
on the
think
players.
also the problem we have, I think, is that Romero and Van der Vaart are excellent defenders, but I don't think jumping and heading the ball out is one of their strengths. Although, ironically, with Romero, it's probably his strength going forward. So
Mhm.
why can't he use that when we're defending? But I agree with you about Ange's comments. I think but that's just him. That's how he does it. Will just dismiss it. It is something they need to work on. It's just we
It's
do
not the
need.
worst quote I've ever seen from a manager after a game.
No,
Like I said, I
no,
think we have short
no.
memories with the little blow-ups that Jose and Conte would have after games where
Yeah,
they themselves too, right, would dismiss a lot of things
uh,
that were clearly going wrong. And I
uh,
also appreciate that Ange sometimes at least faces the music and isn't giving us, like Ten Hag,
yeah.
isms where we're talking about how amazing we were, like when we're actually, weren't great. So at
Well,
least he's somewhat realistic.
I mean, yesterday the Ben Davis thing. I think people are getting it wrong here. I don't think it's the fact that he didn't track back. It's the fact that he didn't send Saka towards the touchline.
Mm,
I mean,
I agree.
I was never a decent defender, but the one thing I used to try and do, and it's one of the basic things they teach you when you for football, is to you just position your body so you push them that way. And he didn't do that. And we all knew, everyone in the stadium knew that what Saka going to do, he's got to get on his left foot. And so, Ben Davies has got to push it. But would Udogie have done the same thing? He might have done the same thing and not did that. So, yeah, look, Ben Davies, I don't agree with this whole we should have played Van der Ven at left back and all this sort of stuff. I think that because you're biting your nose off to spite your face there because you're getting rid of your central defensive partnership.
Do you think he could have gone with Emerson? That was my choice ahead of it. Well ahead of it. I said Emerson. I just knew defensively I think is better than Ben Davies out there.
It's funny that every coach we've had has stuck with Davies in these sort of situations. So so I wasn't very surprised. I mean, I didn't see Ange making any big changes, but that second goal again. You have the penalty decision that went against us now. Okay, if you look at it from an opposition point of view, if they'd have given the penalty against Kulusevski, everyone would go, "Oh, that was rubbish. It's only a little knot." But they said on the ref watch this morning that it was only a little knot, not enough to give a penalty for. Well, if that's not enough to give a penalty for, then how is 3 inches offside enough to deny a goal? It's just football is just totally upside down now, So it's crazy. So there, you had that decision. I don't think he even went to VAR, did it? I don't think they even looked at it.
Oh, I mean, I think they do go to VAR, but then what happens is they see that there's a Spurs badge and a Spurs game involved, and then they actually realize that that's not what we do because we don't give Spurs penalties.
Yeah, I mean,
and so it takes Ben Davies getting kicked in the nuts for us to get a penalty, and it still doesn't even come to us instantaneously. We still have to go to VAR to see if he was kicked in the left ball or in the right ball. I mean, it's just getting.
And the thing was, Dermot Gallagher actually on Ref Watch this morning actually praised Michael Oliver for changing his decision immediately. It's like, well, not the fact that he didn't, he's looking straight at him and didn't give the penalty, but no, he went to the screen and he changed it immediately, sort of thing. So, yeah, it's not good. But and someone actually made a point saying, "Oh, how many saves did Raya make?" Well, he didn't make any saves, but he certainly performed well by coming out and catching these crosses. But by the same token, Vicario only actually made one save in the whole game. So, it wasn't like
he made one spectacular save. I forgot it. Even I think it might have been offsides, but even still, like it would have been marginal and very close.
And that was the only save
they probably would have given it onside. We know.
But, he wasn't exactly busy. So, I think that sort of shows you a bit of how the game going. I don't like stats, as you know, but 68% possession against a team that are going for the title. It's not too bad, not too shabby. Although in Arsenal's defence, I think that Arteta probably knew how to play us. He knew. Yeah, I think he probably thought, well, they're not going to do much in the box, so we'll let them have the ball outside the box, and then we'll get them on the break. I mean, that's what his tactics were, and fair play for that. I mean,
isn't that what it makes it a confusing game? Was just that Spurs played probably better in the first half than they even did in the second, but we scored 2 goals in the second, but none in the first. And we find ourselves 3-0 down. And I felt like Arsenal played better in the second half than they even did in the first half.
Yeah,
they find themselves 3-0 up.
It's how the football goes, isn't it? Really, it's small margins. Again, Van der Vel's goal stands. It's 1-1, and suddenly it's a different game. Because
and the momentum changes there as well, right? Because it was only like 10 minutes after they had scored.
Exactly. It was the best time to score the equaliser. I have to. It's interesting that the first goal that Arsenal scored last season in this game was from a cross, wasn't it, or a corner that Lloris fumbled into the net. So they've literally scored we've conceded 2 identical goals. With Højbjerg heading into his own net. I mean, it's a brilliant header, you have to say. That was a really greatly executed header.
Do you agree with me that was a bad omen for the rest of the game? That, the first set piece you come up against and your own guys, put a bullet header into his own net. It's like it doesn't breathe confidence into the rest of the players.
Every time Arsenal got a corner, I was like, oh my God, head in hand sort of thing, hide behind the blue. Well, I was at the game, but hide behind the blue sofa. It was it's interesting what Dermot was saying. Yeah, I'm the same. I sort of didn't feel angry. I just felt a bit sad this morning that he didn't go. So
Can you explain why? What do you think the difference is? Maybe compare it to last year's result where we lost 2-0. Were you sad, angry? just completely.
We didn't. We played absolutely awful last season. I think yesterday's performance was a much better performance than last season. We looked like we could get in the game this season, and this time. And the fact that 3-0 down, there was a big argument going on, behind us in the stands at half time by someone said, "Oh, we're going to lose 5 or 6-0 in this," and this other guy said, "No, we're not." And it almost kicked off, but but yeah, I mean
Like a Twitter argument happening right in front of you.
Yeah. So the fact that we did manage to claw it back to 3-2, and was attacking at the end there, 3-3, and if we manage to sort of correct our set pieces by 50%, we draw the game 2-2 yesterday. So so it swings and roundabouts. So I think that's probably why I wasn't absolutely angry. And also it's great catching up with Dave and Nick and a lot of other people yesterday that I haven't seen for a long time. So big up to them and hello to everyone. But yeah, it's
one last question.
I'm glad I had Monday morning off. Sorry, what was that?
No, I was going to say just one other question I did want to get your thoughts on here, Brad. Romero, I think he was a positive. I feel like we could end on that before I let you go, because for me, he was terrific. Like I felt like he probably could have scored 5 goals, but not only that, but
he was our best striker yesterday, Romero.
And he was so brave, wasn't he? Like he just showed like he actually cares.
The thing is, he was all that, but the thing is, people that criticise our way of playing, Ange Postecoglou's way of playing, that's the reason we got that goal. That's the reason Romero got that goal, because he was up there, in a position that he, can you imagine him playing in that position if under Conte? Conte would have probably dragged him off, So the fact that we played this sort of style of football meant that he was there at that moment. He did go forward. So, you can't, criticise it 1 minute and then sort of not the other minute. So it's yeah. But no, Romero's a tremendous player, and
I thought he had a great game. Like
he and as you say, he epitomises that sort of fight and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's another. It's going to be interesting, the Man City game, because that could well decide the title.
Yeah, how do you think we'll fare against Chelsea then, Brad? As I pull up Blue Sofa songs, and please everybody do follow over this link. Show Brad some love. I know he put out a recent new song as well, just 3 days ago. It looks like too. So please everybody show it some love.
Two things. Chelsea, I'm actually reasonably confident, although Chelsea have this habit of when they play us, suddenly playing like 1970s Brazil after being rubbish for most of the season. So I think it depends on what time, what sort of. I think Tottenham are relatively consistent in how we perform, but I think it depends what team Chelsea turn up on Thursday. There is a new. I have got a new song out. It's no more lovey-dovey, social comment songs. It's a balls out rock and roll song, and I think that the title, "Tax the Super Rich," probably gives you an idea what the song's about. It's doing fairly well, actually, up to pretty close to 100 views at the moment, which is, I always think anything over 100 views is good. I've got 195 subscribers, so I'm on my way to 200. So hopefully they'll get there soon. But if you haven't, please check out Blue Sofa Songs. It's just me attempting to write songs, basically, and I do everything, play them all, video, do the whole thing, really. So check it out, and thanks to everyone that has checked it out and subscribed and left really nice comments and that sort of thing. I really do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot. There's a lot of effort goes into it. I was up to 11 o'clock on Thursday night finishing it off so I could get it onto YouTube on the Friday. So
well done, dude, Brad. And thanks again always for making the time for us and keeping me company, doing some Tottenham therapy with myself. Appreciate it. And say this to you, but I'm more kind of just saying it to the people in the audience. But I do think Brad, everybody, is a good example of why it can look intimidating, but it's actually quite easy, I think, to come on and have your say. And he does it on a regular basis. He makes a lot of sense. I think Brad too, lots of times, and has a lot of composure and has his own opinions, his own sort of ways of looking at things, but does a great job on it. And
I think composure is probably age related.
Maybe
you get to a stage where you go, what's the point in getting too upset? Although I must admit, I was watching Match of the Day this morning, and I was swearing over my breakfast at Arsenal, calling them all sorts of things. So
I think that's plenty okay. Probably Talk Sport would make you do the same, I bet, as well. Big up, Brad. Appreciate you. Have a good rest of your I'll see you after the Chelsea game, or I'll see you before. But big up, Brad. Have a good rest of your week.
No problems, mate. See you later. Bye-bye. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Big up to Brad here, everybody. Do follow this link, Blue Sofa Song. Show the man some support. Very close to 200, and it's just put out a new song. And like I said, I think he's a good ambassador of the show, just as a class act every time when we have our conversations, when it can be really hard, to make sense of what's going on at Spurs, and he provides some good Spurs therapy. Moondog, member for 29 months. Good evening, Jack. Big up to you, Moondog. Appreciate your support, as well as Nick's, as well as Ian Cooks, Jacob Anderson the other day as well, I think, too. So many of you guys showing so much support for, well over 2 years, approaching on 3 years now for some of you guys. Really do appreciate it. And Moondog, hopefully you and Charlie are recovering after the game. A lot of us went for 3-2 score predictions, just didn't end up being the 3-2 that we had wanted. But big up to you, sir. And I hope to see that we get a good comeback and a good sort of bounce back from that result. Not really feeling my best about Spurs. I do have my sort of doubts about how strong we are going to finish. I had said, originally, I think if we can get 4 points from this game, from that last game, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Man City, if we could get 4 points from those 3 games, I think, we find ourselves in a much better position. And also, I think with a bit more confidence in Ange. And so let me know what you think. Is that still possible? Can we pick up 3 against Chelsea? And then could we be able to pick up anything against Man City? I think most Spurs fans probably don't want us to. So can we even get 3 points, against Chelsea? Let me know, Moondog. Big up to you, sir. Appreciate your support over all these months, my man. And good to see as well the Philly 2109 in the house. Big up to the Philly. The Crooklyn Jack is running this one solo. So do give me, do spare me tonight, Philly. I'm just trying my best here. Big up to you, sir. Appreciate you, my man. Hasspur's in the house too. Good to see you, Hasspur. Appreciate the support. Scotty Hynam, the one and only Scott and Hynam. And so many of you joining us. We really do appreciate the support for the channel. But let's keep things moving. Let's keep it going. We have, after Brad, Rufus Roughcut. Is he still? Yes, he is. Waiting very patiently. Our man out in Deutschland. What's up, Rufus? I think you're on mute, my friend.
How you doing, mate?
Nicht gut.
No,
What's up? How do you feel after that game? How do you explain it? Because I said to Brad, right? Spurs played better in the first half, find themselves 3-0 down. And I think we kind of played worse in the second, but we scored 2 of our goals to make the comeback.
I get two bugbears straight out of the room. Is the VAR and how you didn't see that. Well, how he didn't see the penalty, I have no idea.
The Kulu one.
It's
or the kicking the balls on Davies. Which one are you?
It happened right in front of him, like I can still hear them balls ringing,
What'd you make of the this season in general though? Is that a reflection of the season in general with the refs?
Just quickly, the offside was so marginal. Like from one angle it looked onside, from the other angle it looked offside. And funny enough is they obsessed about the onside angle and then gave it offside. It was an arse cheek. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like if it's that debatable, it should go to the attacking team. I thought that was always the rule, but in the last year or so, it always seems to go to the defensive team.
I think the tie goes to the Arsenal. It seems like this season with a lot of the referee decisions. The fact that they've also had probably 12. I think they have the most penalties, or they've also been tied for like the most penalties given to them. And it takes pretty much assault on Ben Davies, family jewels, in order for us to get even one. And it wasn't instantaneous. It had to go to VAR and everything. And you could tell how he was so reluctant to do it. Even Michael Oliver. What do you make of the Kulusevski one though? Just on the topic of penalties, was that a trip?
1 week it's given, 1 week it's not, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's if I feel really in my heart of hearts, if it was given against us, I'd probably be pissed off. If it's us, then I'd want it. If I'm being honest.
No. I feel like with Kulu, I don't really like. Do you feel like Kulu doesn't go down easy enough? He's the one guy in modern football who doesn't dive. I think Kulu, where he actually tries to stay on his feet far too often when he can be actually being fouled. He could go down easier, I think.
But I just don't think these little things that cost us. I mean, the other bugbear I get out of the room before I go on to what I think about the game.
Get them all out.
Is Højbjerg. What the fuck do you think you're doing with that header?
Oh, I know. Terrible.
Where the hell do you think the ball is going to go other than in the net?
Yeah, that's what I was confused. Even he did a whole motion like towards his own net. Like that was the part I didn't understand. It was like, where does he expect that to go? I agree.
Did he suddenly think he was at the other end?
It was a
for one
terrific
split
finish.
moment think it was a Tottenham corner? I have no idea. But like, it's like, what the hell are you doing at that moment? It's going nowhere other than in the goal.
Yeah.
You're far too low to the ground to be clearing that.
Was it also a mistake though to even play him in the first place though? Like I feel like we know Højbjerg. I like Højbjerg, Rufus. You know I've defended him on plenty of occasions, but I don't think it made sense to play him because we know he's going to be out the door after this season, right? What's the point in playing him?
We just played too defensive, didn't we? There you've got to blame Ange. Like our first the 11 we picked was so defensive. We needed Sarr on. Like it was just
he left Sarr out, and we have such a great record without Sarr or with Sarr. Sorry.
And it was just I don't know. There, Ange's got to be blamed, but there I'll just also say I'm not a person who's going to sit here and say Ange has to leave. Look, honestly, anybody out there
you do think he deserves some criticism still?
Yeah, he picked the team.
Yeah,
he picked the team. He's got a hand, and whatever's going on with set pieces at the moment, it's not just this game. It goes back the last 6 or 7 games. That last 6 or 7 games was our running. They were the easy opposition. We should have a cushion against Villa, a big one.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost so many shitty games, and then we've won games. And to be honest, the games we've lost and the games we've won, I could have been watching the same game. And it's not great. But for people that want Ange out, quite often we're playing with only 3 to 4 players that weren't in last year's team,
Yeah. There's a lot of inexperience in that team when it comes to these big games and even this season in general.
It's like, look at Howe, okay, I would like us to be doing better than Howe is. Do you know what I mean? But like, he's pulled Newcastle together. He's steadied the ship. Do you know what I mean? Or probably the worst analogy would be Lego Man at Arsenal. 2 seasons ago, how that summer, everybody wanted him out. And
if the fans had their way, they would have sacked him 3 times over on 3 separate occasions.
And that's the point with Spurs. I hate to talk about the scum, but they would have had him out 3 times over. And look, honestly, anybody that wants Ange out, I've got one thing to say. How well has it worked sacking the manager every 5 minutes? It hasn't. So we got to stick with somebody. And I like the way we were playing at the beginning of the season. I just don't like the way we're playing at the moment. And that's the
Do you think we played well, though, in the first, 20, 30-ish minutes, though, against Arsenal, despite going down so quickly? I actually did think we were controlling the game, causing them problems.
We were great.
There was a sense of, I actually had a sense of calm in the way that we were playing it. And of course, that calm was quickly eroded with the goals.
Everybody that says we were playing well, we were playing well in 1/3, the middle.
Mm.
I can see where people are coming from, but you got to have rose-tinted glasses on. Up front, we attack. With the starting 11, we were attacking, and this is not just this game. It's been the last few games. We attack, we get to the box, and then it's kryptonite. It's like the opposition box is like kryptonite to Tottenham at the moment.
Yeah, it is. When it comes to decision making, especially, Rufus, right? It's even when we find ourselves with a great opportunity, decision making be terrible.
They get it out from the back, gets in the middle, you get a really nice ball, and then it goes backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple of times against Arsenal we were proper on the break, and then they just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
On the break, and then they put the brakes on, and that just didn't make any sense to me. But if anybody
wants a good example of what you're saying.
If anybody out there wants to criticise me, look at other teams. Other teams have no trouble attacking the box with players that we wouldn't put in our first 11, and they have no trouble sometimes against teams like Arsenal attacking the box. But after we made the changes in the second half, suddenly we were able to attack the box. And I think that Son shouldn't have been playing in the middle.
Yeah, I
The
agree.
centre backs are too tall for him. He's getting bullied by his own shadow at the moment. And
Exactly.
when he got put over to the left where Werner was playing, he actually looked brighter.
He looks like a natural again all of a sudden. He looks comfortable. He looks confident, because we had even said that. Didn't we even say that last season under Conte, where what Son needs is to be picking up the ball, facing his defender, running at his man. That's when he's his
Exactly.
best. That's when he's at his, his most lethal. And when you have him on the left wing in this system, he's going to be doing that every time. He's going to be facing his man. He's going to have some pace to be able to run at him and cause something to happen.
I don't have a lot of confidence in these last games, but if we're going to pull something out for these last games, we've got to put Richie in there. I didn't like Richie against Arsenal because he nearly got a red card for just being stupid.
Yeah.
It was just completely unnecessary. He nearly got sent off. He was lucky. He's just got to chill out a bit. I like the shithousery for him, but like not that.
It's not what we needed. It would have been good if we were 3-3, if we had drawn the game, and then all the shithousery for sure. Like waste as much time as possible. Torment them, but we're still trying to get back into the game. Like, you can't waste time and do that. You're actually doing Arsenal a favor, I think, by doing all of that.
And Arsenal were so nervous, and then for the last 2 minutes, we went back into the first half mode.
Yeah, and just playing too complacent,
playing it backwards.
Yeah,
getting into the box, playing it backwards, and it's like, look, we've got 40 seconds on the clock. Can somebody put a cross in? And they're the big problems for me at Tottenham at the moment. We seem allergic to the box. We seem allergic to putting crosses into the box.
Yeah. It doesn't really feel like anyone is a real good crosser of the ball either, though, I'd say, bar Son, because you look at some of the crosses we put in, like even towards the end, they were all looping and right at Raya. It was catching practice for Raya. It felt like we had the right idea with the balls that we were playing in, but they were never executed really with any sort of quality.
One thing me and Jacob said about Raya is, how come is it, even if he makes a simple catch, he has to suddenly then dive on the floor and sit on the ball and then look both ways?
It was.
That could be a changing game.
Yeah. Well, that's what was frustrating was we kept looping them up there, Rufus. It was just catching practice for him. It was just, for the cameras each time. He just got to have a nice little dive and, catch for the cameras. And it just gave Arsenal that sort of breathing room and allowed them to relax afterwards as well.
Yeah. It would make a good drinking game. It was frustrating, but like, it's the way it is, But like we were our own worst enemies. We just didn't attack the box. Me and Jacob were saying, where is the Tottenham that led up to the injuries for the first half of the season?
Speaking of which, Maddison, he's a good example of that. Completely different player in the first 10 games of the season. Now look at him. What are your thoughts on him, man? He frustrates me.
He seems to be a player playing not to get injured before the Euros, rather than a player who's playing to get chosen before the Euros, if you know what I mean.
This might sound silly, or, I'm not an England fan or know much about the England team enough to give it much thought, but I feel like there are 3 or 4 English players that play the number 10 position that would actually be doing better than him right now, right? When you say you have the likes of
I think
Gibbs-White, you have Foden, you have so many others.
It's like the Euros are coming. It's like he doesn't want to be injured, but like it's also sort of like seems to frustrate him that these other people are for him. It seems to have taken away his freedom.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Maybe I put my words wrong, but I think whatever's happening with England and the Euros seems to be playing on his mind a little bit, But like,
do you think his confidence in Ange is being drained because Ange is starting to pull him off early? He's not giving him that sort of shield.
But some of the times where he's performing, Ange is right. That's somewhere where I've got to defend Ange,
Yeah.
Like if any player's playing shit, then you got to pull them off.
No, I agree.
You can't say like, oh, they're a legend, I leave them on. It's just like sometimes it's pulling a legend off that changes them for the next game that makes them the ultimate player.
I'd agree. Well, Rufus, I've appreciated this chat. Is Jacob doing okay? Is everything all right with him these days?
Yeah, he's studying hard at the moment. He's finishing his. He's learning to be a kindergartner. So.
Does he still have that mullet? Because I feel like he had the mullet before everybody else did. I think he was a trendsetter.
It's a legend in Freiburg, that mullet. It looks like he's
I
got
bet it
cat
is.
sleeping on his head, but it's
Die
not
Goetze,
legend.
Die
It's
Legende.
got copycats now.
Yeah, Die Legende von Freiburg. Yeah.
Okay, 'cause
But I think he would.
It's not just like one of them, just sort of like, oh, it's been cut like a mullet. It's sort of like it's
proper.
ingrown, you know. It's
Yeah,
proper.
it's proper. Yeah, it's legendary status.
It's like
I
a
like
carpet.
that. I just think he definitely set a trend because he was one of the people I thought of when now I'm seeing mullets everywhere. I'm seeing, a Hoiberg with a mullet, and he probably took it from Jacob. But big up, man.
He's been wearing that 3 years now, and he was one of the trendsetters. But like, I keep telling him now, like everybody's getting one. You have to get something else.
Yeah, he has
Mike
to find a
George is
new trend to
legendary.
set. He's got to find a new one to set. Love it. Big up, Rufus. I hope you have a good rest of your week, man. I appreciate you having this chat with me. I really do. Good therapy. Good therapy. All right.
You take care, mate.
Gute Nacht. Hab ein Spaßes, Woche. See you later. Have a good one. Rufus, my man, who I never get to practice German anymore, and he probably gets annoyed because he just wants to talk about Spurs, and I try to use that as a guilty pleasure. But big up to Rufus. I like having a chat with him. Like I say with plenty of others, he has his expresses his opinion well, just sees it through his own eyes, and just talks about it and gets his therapy out. And so anybody else who wants to do the same, feel free to do so. But we're going to keep things rolling. We're going to keep it moving here, and I think we have. This is the order we still have left. I'm just making sure not anybody's joined me that I'm thinking about or forgetting about. We have the order is Michael, keeping it out in Eastern Europe. We're going back to Michael. Jory is after that. Sam. And then we have Alan afterwards. Anybody else want to join? Feel free to do so. The link is still up there. I could take it down maybe after probably Michael and Jory. Then I might take it down after that just so I have at least a vague idea of still what's left. But anybody who's still thinking about coming on and have your say would do me a massive favor. Hitting that link so I at least have a good picture of what's still left. But let's go on to Michael. Keep things rolling here. Hey, Michael, how are
Jack? You? Not too shabby. Not too shabby. The game kind of ruined my Sunday, but yeah. Let's talk about the game.
I had to wake up to it, which wasn't easy.
Session.
Normally it's like an 11 a.m., 12 p.m., noon kind of kickoff. I get to, get myself psyched up for it. I actually just had to wake up to sort of like a boxing match of a game. But what do you think, Michael? Do you think Spurs were unlucky in this game, or is this result papering over some of the cracks of a lot of the problems that we're seeing?
It's really a strange thing. Like, first things first, by the way, we had the family over of my girlfriend's family. I mean, and there were 3 little kids in the room, right? So I couldn't really go all out with my reactions. It was really a bit of a painful watch. Because sometimes dropping a little curva softens the blow when you go 3-0 down against your biggest rivals, right?
Yeah,
but
you want to distract yourself.
I find it a bit hard to properly assess this game, to properly get something out of this game, because I have a feeling that yes, on paper we looked really good, and yes, on paper it looked like we had control of the game in terms of possession. We had more shots, better XG, right? But I wonder how much of it is because of the scoreline in the first half. So, I personally think that if the game didn't go as it did, which is us conceding absolutely dreadful goals that we have to talk about, right? But I think if this game didn't go as it did and it was more equal, for example, if Van de Ven's goal stood, right, and we actually didn't literally shit ourselves with one counter-attack and one, set piece, right? I wonder how this game would go, because I actually think that Arsenal are really good at playing a similar style of football to us. I think they can actually play on the field a lot more instead of defending low blocking. But we kind of gave them the incentive to just absolutely pack the box and low block it. And they kind of, I have a feeling they kind of knew that we don't really have enough quality and enough we don't have that edge to actually defeat them. As I said, considering how the scoreline went, right? So yeah, I have to talk about the goals that we conceded, because honestly, Jack, as much as I really like what's going on this season at Tottenham, I am also extremely annoyed with the amount and type of goals that we concede. It literally feels like we concede the same bloody goal every single game. I don't know if you have the same feeling, but it's literally like in 2024, because like in 2023 part of this season, I feel like the games.
Can I make a guess at the goal that you're describing? That we just score every time? Set piece is obviously one of them, right? That's kind of one that's been a consistent. But then it's been that counterattack, long ball over the top, over one of our fullbacks' head, and it leads to like a one-on-one sort of dangerous situation, and we just get exposed for it a lot. Yeah, it's been that goal.
Exactly. Like I get that this is the risk which comes with this system. I get it, right? This is how Ange wants to set up, right? But I am getting increasingly more annoyed that we just don't slightly adapt when we need to. I have a feeling that a lot of those defeats that we had recently could be maybe not avoided, but at least made softer if we actually adapted to what the opposition has to offer. Because I have before this game started, the one spot that I was really afraid of was exactly that long ball from the left side to Arsenal's right side on top of Saka, and Saka having a 1v1 versus our fullback. Because Destiny Udogie was injured, we kind of knew that this is the weakness, right? And we as fans know it. We don't have coaching budgets, right, etc. So I have to raise the question: why didn't we at least soft adapt? I'm not saying that we should stop inverting the fullback or whatever, right? But I have a feeling that maybe Ben Davies should be instructed to stay a bit further back, right? To not invert as much into the middle of the pitch, and to not go as far forward, because we know that he doesn't have the legs and the pace to fight with Saka, right? The issue in that goal was the fact that Ben Davies literally had to go head down and sprint towards the box, because if he tried to do the screening thing, right, and considering where the counter-attack started, right, because it was at the halfway line, right, I think if he started screening Saka and trying to shock him to the side, I think Saka would just knock the ball past him and just win the foot race, right? Because Ben Davies, unfortunately, as much as I actually like him as a guy, as a footballer, I appreciate what the amount of time that he spent with the club. I he doesn't have the legs anymore to win the foot race with a guy like Saka, right? So yeah, it's just this soft adaptation that I think we are lacking, and it is making me as I said, I have to reiterate it. It is making me increasingly annoyed with some of the goals that we concede, right?
Yeah.
Because let's be honest about it, we haven't conceded a wonder strike for a long time. It's not like we are conceding long shots, 30-yard screamers into top bins, or we are. Yeah, those goals kind of feel simple for me to concede. And that Højbjerg, by the way, that Højbjerg own goal, I don't know what he was doing.
It's terrible.
But honestly, it's pissing me off the most that for past 4 North London derbies, right, we literally were our own worst enemy. When we played them last season at their own ground, Emerson Royal got the red card, right?
Yeah.
When we played them at our own ground, Hugo Lloris pushed the ball into his own net. When we played them at their ground this season, Romero scored, and I know it was unfortunate, right? But he scored the own goal, and we had the penalty, right? It just feels like and again, I don't want to blame like it on the referee decision or whatever, but it just feels like the footballing gods are kind of against us in this fixture. At the end, it's really like
I know what you mean, where like I'd say in Arsenal's case, right? In some of these games where we have, like you brought up, lost to them or whatever, it's not even like we've given them much of a chance to prove that they were better than us. Like even this
Yeah.
season, we know that they're better than us. We know they're a better team. But the fact that we just shot ourselves in the foot instead of letting them shoot
Exactly
us,
right.
really, like, we didn't even give them a chance to try to beat us. We just beat ourselves very quickly with the goals that we conceded. Once you go 3-0 down in a North London derby at home, no matter how good you're playing or no matter how much you might be on top of them, it's a very tall order to ask to then try to
Exactly
somehow
right.
get back into it. You're practically handing them the win. And that was frustrating to see. I'd rather Arsenal have just destroyed us and have, proven that, they were a much better team than us, than to just give them that 3-goal burst, because it also made them play differently. It made them set up, far deeper and invite the pressure, which gave us that sort of sense of, kind of, panic that we had to sort of play more risks and play with an even higher line than maybe we already were comfortable. It like just changed, I think, the game plan of even both managers of how it was going to all unfold. And I agree with you. Like we just continue to be our own worst enemy, and it just kind of just makes it even, easier for the other team. They don't even have to play very well because we just kind of hand it over to them. Just on sort of, I don't want to focus too much on Davies and like Højbjerg as players, but I do think Ange can bear some responsibility, Michael, for the fact that he had picked them, because me, I had made for well before that game, like pretty much weeks in advance, had said that I'd rather it be Van de Ven, I'd rather it be Emerson, I'd rather it be you or me at left back than Ben Davies. I just knew that was going to breed trouble, and his days there as a fullback have been long gone, at least in my opinion. And when it comes to, and it's not ideal, right? Playing Van de Ven or Emerson out there. I get it. It's not ideal. It's not perfect, but I still think it would have been better. And then playing Højbjerg, his mind, his head is out the door. It's gone. Like he doesn't want to be here anymore. He's going to be gone after this season. It just didn't make much sense for me to play him in this game. It really didn't. Or even to start him for the remainder of the fixtures. It doesn't make sense to me. And the fact that then he played terribly on top of that is just like, geez, like not only are you crushing Basuma's confidence, but then you're also playing a guy who's you're banking on is going to have a good game, and then he ends up having a terrible game. And I don't know, it's just that's frustrated me. I think that was on Ange actually. Even though they played poorly, him and Ben Davies, I think that's partially on Ange for even picking them.
Yeah, I have to like completely agree with what you said. I personally didn't like some of the personnel choices in this game, right? But you know what the issue is? That Bissouma didn't really give us a reason to start him with his recent performances. I think that's the issue. And I just have a feeling that Ange treats his players and their roles with like some sort of rigidity, if it's even a word. Like I have a feeling that for him, Udogi is the starting left back and Davies is the substitute left back. So if the starting left back is not there, then the substitute left back plays. And I have a feeling that with the number 6, it's kind of the same thing. I have a feeling that if Bissouma doesn't perform, then Højbjerg starts because he's the substitute number 6, right? Whereas personally, I would play a midfield of Bentancur, Sarr, and Maddison. I wouldn't start neither Højbjerg nor Bissouma because I think Bissouma didn't like warrant a starting 11 place, right? And Højbjerg isn't really the type of player to play in this type of game. I have a feeling that Højbjerg has his qualities where he is useful. I think if he played against like low blocking Sheffield, then I think Højbjerg has qualities that are useful in that sort of scenario, right? But against high pressing, like high octane Arsenal side, like he's just a bit too slow, and it's not really his fault, right? He's just a different type of player. And with the backline, right, I definitely wouldn't start Davies, not because I think he cannot do like a left back role against like a weaker opposition, but you are facing, as much as it pains me to say, one of the better right wingers in the league, right? And one of the fastest and youngest and like lively right wingers in the league. I personally think that we would have been much better starting Emerson Royal, which again is not like something that I really want to say, because I don't think like Emerson Royal is also like a really good player, right? Or starting Van de Ven as like the pseudo left back role, right? Because it wouldn't be like a 100% left back role in our system. But then you run into the issue of like changing the system and players not being accustomed to, you know, some of the movement, etc. Right? So I think he's kind of been dealt with like bad hands when it comes to the left back position, right? But I also like this is my thing on like the personal choices. I definitely would start Sar. I don't know why Sar has been getting dropped recently. I think that he's been one of the better performing midfielders in that team, right? But I also have to say that our front line during this match was absolutely useless. Like except Kulusevski. I think Kulusevski had a really good game and he was really giving Tomiyasu a tough time, in my opinion. He was,
I agree.
Like he showed me the strength and determination to actually like believe in him, right? Whereas
what we've been missing is hold-up play in the past few games, right? And what he provided was actually that hold-up play, someone who could drop deep, pick up the ball, and actually be able to handle the challenges and the physicality, you know, of the defenders around him. Michael, since I do have more guests and I am pressed for time, and I know you probably do have other things you want to say, so any other sort of just quick topics that you did want to get out or talk about? I could hand you one because I don't want to just, you know, end you right here, but I thought Romero played terrific, but any other topics you want to talk about before?
So I will quickly fire off my points. As I said, I was disappointed with Maddison and Son, especially during that game. They are the captains, and for me, this is the game where you bloody step up. I know that Son is like playing as a number 9, which is not his favorite position, but sorry, you have to step up in this type of game. Kudos for scoring the penalty in the 85th minute. I know it's not easy, right? So that's one point. Second point, Romero was absolutely brilliant. I loved every single minute of him playing in this game, and I was honestly screaming to heavens that his header effort in the first half didn't go in when he hit the post. That's one thing. He could have had a hat trick. Michael Oliver, fuck off. I hate you. You are a bottle job. You never make tough decisions. He always bottles making tough decisions. And honestly, I don't think that it was really a pen on Kulusevski. I know it might not go well with some of Spurs fans, but I don't really think it was a pen. But that offside decision, I still don't understand how it can bounce off to Arsenal players and not end up being like a new phase of play. And I mean, Rice pretty much assaulted the Davies family line with that kick, right? Thank God Ben Davies has kids already, because I kid you not, he probably would have lost his fertility after that kick, right? And I don't know, he's standing 4 meters away from it, seeing the leg go into Ben Davies's crotch, and he doesn't.
Yeah, that's what's amazing. It's like the leg even like ends up on the other side of like Ben Davies' pelvis. So.
It's like completely ridiculous. I absolutely wanted to like go there to North London and absolutely murder him with my own hands, but unfortunately that's illegal, and I can't go to North London, right? So.
Well, unfortunately, they would have had VAR, Michael. That's so they would have been able to look back at it.
Yeah. So these are my points. The disappointing result, yes, but I think I take some encouragement in the second half performance, but we have to fix up with those little mistakes that I mentioned. And on to Chelsea, right? I just hope. Listen, playing Chelsea is like flipping a coin, and when it lands on one side, they are absolutely dog shit, and when it lands on the other side, they are actually quite decent. And unfortunately, it's a rigged coin when they play against us, right? I don't know why they hate us so much, but every time they play against us, they turn into Terminators, right? So, I just hope that it somehow lands on the other side and we find ourselves playing against the weaker like type of Chelsea, right? But yeah, on to the next. And listen, I don't really mind if you don't get 4, but I won't take it if this United side overtakes us. If this United side ends up finishing higher than us, boy, tough conversations.
I'm gonna look probably really stupid because it might happen, but I think people are being a little ridiculous when they're saying things like that. I mean, come on, like, have anybody watched Man United this season? They just drew to Burnley at home. They conceded 2 goals to Sheffield United, I believe, at home as well, or whatever that game was. Like, a little ridiculous to assume that they're going to somehow magically win all of the rest of their games. And we do find ourselves as well, right, with still a game in hand, on them.
Yeah.
It's not like they have games in hand on us. I really don't get where sort of like, especially if we end up, winning the last games of the season, which everyone expects us to, and if we pick up a win against Chelsea or something, I think it's already out of reach for them. Like it'd be.
I'm just saying if. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying if. Right? It won't happen,
Yes,
but
if. I'd be ashamed in us, but I'd also just be absolutely astounded by they are a worse team than us. I can say that with confidence.
By a
I can
country
say that
mile,
with
by a
confidence. They
country
are a
mile,
worse
mate.
team. Same with Chelsea. They are a worse team than us. But if they catch us, then it just shows how much we are bottling it as well. Big up, Michael, though. Appreciate you, sir. Thanks for the therapy.
up,
Thanks for keeping
big
me
up,
company
Jack.
as always. Appreciate your patience. Good night. Have a good
Bye-bye.
one, man. Bye. Big up to Michael, everybody. That man knows how to break it down when it can be very, very confusing, as I think a lot of you have done very well tonight, right? A very confusing game, a tough one to understand, a tough one to make sense of, but you're doing the best you can, I think, to try to make sense of it. And I have really enjoyed these conversations. Looking forward to this one, though. It's been a while since I've talked to this man, the Joracle. You know him from plenty of fan shows throughout the Spurs community, and it's been a while since I've chatted to this man. What's up, Jory?
Hey, Jack. Good to be back with you.
You picked maybe the best one, but also the worst one to come back, because this one is hard to make sense of, Jory.
Well, this one couldn't keep me away, so I just had to get on, right? So, yeah, I've been listening to a lot of basically everything I can get my fingers on since the game, and I think for me, yesterday was kind of the final. I mean, I had it before, but I would say I left a little bit of a doubt for the game yesterday, and it went out the window with the game yesterday. So for me, it's the same issues that we've been seeing for many months. Whether we win or lose, we've been seeing these same issues. Most of us, I think, know that we can't keep getting away with it, and of course we didn't in this game. In terms of because a lot of people are talking about we played pretty good yesterday. I agree there was some really good play yesterday, but I think it's that's on the players, in my view. We have a good squad. We have a very good young squad. We need seniority. We need some veterans. We need some, not superstars, but some heavyweights at least. We need to get those guys in there. But in general, we have a brilliant base squad to work from. So, I'm kind of a little bit sick of listening to people. All of a sudden, Vicario isn't very good. All of a sudden, Bissouma isn't very good. He's had trouble. All of a sudden, Madison isn't very good. All of a sudden, Son isn't very good. All of a sudden, somebody is not very good is a freaking managerial problem. That's not like it can't be everybody having an individual failure, consistently throughout game after game. That is managerial. That is the coaching. And
I was going to ask, I think you sent in a super chat a while back, and I feel like you have started to have some doubt over sort of, like the general, kind of lack of change under Ange. Like you think like a lot of the same problems just keep coming up. Is that right? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
My doubt started before late last year. I started, I think around the West Ham game, I was kind of like, I thought Ange was actually super clever. I thought his thinking in the setup in the West Ham game, it's kind of like dating a model or something. You kind of you want it to be, and then you start thinking, is he a genius or is he really, really stupid? And it's kind of one of those. I think we're overthinking a lot of Ange's moves, and I think I was doing that at that point. But then shortly after that, we started seeing like not only the set piece issue, which has been going for very long, guys. It's just
is it stubbornness for you? Is that the word that comes to mind?
No, just to finish, Jack. I mean,
Sorry.
not only the set piece issue is definitely the biggest problem, but the bigger problem is the defensive structure. We have the best defenders we've had for many years now, and our defensive structure. I mean, it's the high line for sure, but we have Van der Ven who gets out of trouble. That's part of the system. I understand that. I like it. I'm fine with playing that. But then when we're setting up in defense, a line of defense, we have structural and positional issues all the time, constantly. And we have our best defenders now. So if we have the best personnel and we have the worst clean sheet record or the worst defensive record in a long time, well, that's managerial, and you could say that's obvious. It's ants. It's forward football. It's not. It compared to Mourinho and Conte. Of course, you're going to have a worse defensive record. Yes, all right, fine. But how's it going in the other end? Complete failure as well in the other end. And we have one of the most clinical finishers in the world, but he needs very specific setups and situations to be that finisher. But now we're treating Son. He needs to fit the system instead of trying to put up an attack that's benefiting Son's strengths.
Do you think he's been put in a? What can he do? Because I feel like what's happened is everyone wanted Son to play through the middle, but obviously when you have every man and every mother behind the ball, like you would, you can't play Son in the middle. And so has he just gotten it wrong? Do you think, Ange, by just persisting with it, with him down the middle?
This is just a refusal to be tactical in general. I like Son in the 9, but I know if it's a low block, I don't want Son in the 9 because Son is not good there. And then I want Son. Then I actually want us to set up in a way that we try and at least force the both stretch them on the wide and bring them forward in some kind of way. But I don't want the Son in the 9 there. For me, it was obvious that they would be low blocking, and actually Ernst knew that they were being low. They would go the low block way yesterday because that's his reasoning for having Højbjerg on. And in that sense, I can say, okay, that's not the worst decision ever. But then you also have the problem of the running prowess of the Arsenal team. And Højbjerg is not going to keep up in 90 minutes for that. Saab was the choice in my view, but it's like one I can forgive. I can understand the reasoning for Højbjerg, and to be honest, apart from the own goal, Højbjerg had a reasonable game. It wasn't that bad. He had Højbjerg did his Højbjerg things to a fairly good standard yesterday. But of course, we know Højbjerg will struggle in a fast-paced running game. That's never been his main strength. So, and I think we saw as soon as Saar came on that part of it, both going back and forth, that kind of became more stable. In terms of us showing fight and getting back into it and stuff like that, I'm not having it. We didn't get back into it. We were gifted 2 goals, basically. I mean, yes, pressure makes for a penalty and all of that. Sure, we applied the pressure, but we did not find the way with the Arsenal setup. We did not unlock that defense. Sorry, we didn't.
And is
Raya made a mistake, and we got lucky with Ben Davies getting kicked in the bollocks. After that, we didn't do anything. The only goal we created was our own goal. That's the only goal we created, in my view. So,
what do you think of the Romero chances? Were those just more kind of out of just randomness?
We had chances for sure, but this is part of it as well. It's just like the lack of clinical finishing is of course a standing issue, which is also something it refuses to address, in my view. Also, we're playing a winger game and we're crossing the ball. And yesterday we were crossing it high into one of the best anti-crossing keepers in the league.
Yeah, that's right.
Instead of crossing it low. And Arsenal's not a very physical team, but they are even more physical than us, which is kind of pathetic. Why are we playing a crossing game when we have very non-physical players? Apart from a few players, Kulu is physical, Richarlison's physical, Romero is physical. But the mainstay of our front is not very physical and won't win those headers, So we need to, for me, it's like you have the squad. You're never gonna, replace players until they fit perfectly some kind of hypothetical system, I ask you, who's been winning the league of late, the last couple of years? As far as I know, it's a guy called Pep Guardiola, and then it's been Klopp, and now it's maybe Arteta, and so on. If you look at their management, they've got systems and scenarios for everything, and they switch them up depending on what they meet. They stand on the sideline screaming at the players to be in the right blah blah blah. This approach from Hans, I don't buy it even. I don't think it's right. I think it's a cover. It's a macho cover for not having answers. He's spent his career making this one system, which is brilliant, in a fundamental, like in a base way, is very clever. I'll give him that. But when you come up against Premier League teams, it's not like any other league. You can't just say I'll have better athletes than the other teams. No, you won't. They'll make sure that they have as good athletes or better than you.
Does he fall into like a Bielsa mold then for you? Where Bielsa was like, people liked Bielsa because he had beautiful football, but they felt like he could never be a Pep because of his stubbornness and because of his reluctance to not do what you were just describing, some of the things that Pep and Klopp and the others
Jack,
do.
it's not. I'm not even trying to
the Australian Bielsa.
I'm not even trying to belittle it, because I'm still impressed and like, first of all, I'm not hands out, because there's no point in changing managers with this. Like, I'm Levy out, and that's the whole point. There's no point in changing another manager. Ants at least is a part of a great recruitment run that we've been going for quite some bit before Ants, but I think Ants is very good as a manager for the recruitment, for the young recruitment into the club. I think that will benefit from that. I'm convinced we won't win anything from Ants. I think the Tottenham base will turn on him around about like we're gonna be losing a lot of games this last patch, and I think around about the usual September time it will turn really bad, and before Christmas he will be out. That's my prediction here. You can clip it if you want. But I don't want that, and I don't hope that. I do want him to succeed. I do want him to be back this summer, because I'm not scared. Even if he's going, I think we'll get players of ability and of caliber that will benefit any reasonable choice for a Tottenham manager in the future. But I think I think if you think about it, Jack, like,
you think some writing is starting to come onto the wall of what that sort of phrase, right? Where some writing's already on the wall.
For me, the writing's been on the wall for many months, and now it's kind of like, no, I'm not even trying to look for it anymore. I know, I'm convinced of what we're seeing, and now we're into that part of the managerial period where it's a performance piece, and pretends that it's progressing. Everybody, like the players, pretend that they believe in it, and so on, and it goes into the same happened with Conte and Mourinho and so on. I think we're into that already. To be honest, we will see maybe spouts where both players and even myself might get some belief again. But I was going to say, Jack, if you think about it, like, tactics in football today. It's like so complicated. We've seen everything. Everybody's done everything, you know. And Ans has actually managed to innovate in a time where everything's been done, and hats off to him. But it's kind of like your first album or your first book or whatever. You spend your whole life writing that first book, you know. Now you need to come up with a second book, you know, and it's not going to be as good, you know. And that's kind
Or
of
he
what
keeps producing the same album. That's what you're worried is. That
Yeah,
he
well,
keep
now
producing
he's
the
still
same
on the
one.
first book, you know, but eventually the pressure will demand that he try to, you know, do something, 3 at the back and whatever, and he won't really know how to do it, or like it won't be good either,
Yeah.
you know. So I'll also give him some respect for sticking to his stuff, you know, because that's really the only chance he has. But I don't think he has a chance. I don't believe you can't have a one tactic managerial style in this league. Nobody has gotten away with it. Come on, if Pep Guardiola and Klopp can't get away with it, do we really delude ourselves and think that Hans is going to get away with it? No, and we've seen now since the Chelsea game that everybody has sussed out that template now and knows how to play against it, you know. So
do you think just a quick question here, Jory? I actually have 2 questions before my 2 final questions for you. With Ange, do you think, like, because I think there is a room and there's a space for managers who are a little bit stubborn in their ideas and their approach. It's just often the case that they don't go on to then win on, you know, sort of on repeat, right, in the Premier League, because they have a sort of system that's been well understood and kind of figured out, I guess, is kind of how people like to put it.
You
and
know
what you're
getting,
saying is
you know?
Klopp and Pep have surpassed that, where they have a defined style, but they're able to tweak it and work it in different ways, so they aren't always figured out, like you say there. You think Ange is already fallen into that figured out kind of bracket, and he's not going to leave that. He's not going to escape that sort of figured out sort of mindset.
No, I mean, like I said, I don't think Ange has. I think, and to be honest, one thing I really dislike with him, and especially, I think both in terms of how arrogant and annoyed he can be with decent questions from journalists. I really think it's cowardice of him, and he's like yesterday. He put it on the players. I think I wish more would have what Romero has. You know, it's not. Players are going to be different. They can't all be street kids from Buenos Aires. You know, some of them are going to be English middle class kids. You know, who don't have that edge in them. You still need to find some kind of way of making the best out of them. You know, so. I think that's kind of bullshit and a really, really lame excuse, because it's clear to me that the players are looking for guidance and looking for leadership. And then we might need more leaders on the pitch for sure. But Ange sure as hell ain't providing leadership, in my view, you know. So
they had such glowing words for him though in the beginning of the season. Whereas, do you think that's
I like everything. Like one thing I would say, which is great about Ange, which is one of the reasons why I'm not Ange out even at this point, is there's 2 reasons for that. It's pointless because it's the Levy regime, so it'll just go on. So that's pointless. We'll get good recruitment, but what I like about Ange is that he's actually called out a lot of the ENIC bullshit, like top 4 is nothing. We shouldn't even be thinking about top 4. What's that, you know? And he'll hopefully continue to do that. So hopefully
he doesn't speak their language in that regard.
And our fan base is way too freaking meager and happy to accept these kind of excuses, like Harry Kane's personal accolades. That was our World Cup trophy every year, you know. He's
I know what you mean.
You know, a golden boot. That's all we had to keep on to. And then some of our fan base is even deluded enough to raise our financial, you know, results as some point of pride, or the stadium or whatever, you know. And to be like, I ask you, what's the best run the football club in the world right now? For me, it's Man City. and I ask you, how often do Man City fans talk about their stadium or their financial results, or how well the medical team is run, or whatever, you know? They talk about the stuff on the pitch. That's all that matters. And if you're constantly talking about these things, it's because you have no self-esteem and no self-worth as a football fan, and that's maybe not strange for Tottenham fans, but so like that part of it is very important still with Ants, I think. So Ants is still bringing good things to this club, but I don't think I'm like, he won't even win us a cup. Like, I was convinced. Yeah, sorry, Jack.
No, I was going to say, last question for me here, Jory. Yeah. For next season, like, how long are you giving him then? Because do you give him 10 games, a little bit more than that?
I give him the whole season. Unless you if you want to ask me what the next manager should be, I would say it should be Ancelotti, but he should come with a Qatari sports group with him, or a Saudi Arabian sports group that takes over the ownership. And we take one of these old foxes that's been around the block million times and can utilize any squad and build it up. That's the kind of guy I would like. There are many, like, I think Ancelotti is one of the greatest managers of all time, to be honest. But I'm just saying, I would want one of those, maybe a little bit more old school guy, because that's what I think Tottenham needs to get over the line. But
the reason I ask you is just, I think we need to avoid a Ten Hag scenario where I think they have, seen the signs. They saw in the second season that the players were not behind him. Things were not looking good, and yet they did persist with him. I think Spurs have done a good thing by hopefully sticking with Ange throughout the rest of the season, no matter if they have doubts or whether you are fully behind him. It is more about next season, I think, where we can really truly judge him on whether he is actually the right guy for the long term and for the job. And I think 10 games is probably a fair reflection, because he did brilliant in the first 10 games. Can he do that again, in the next season, right? Could he be able to replicate something like that, like a similar start to what he did in this one? And I think then we might know.
I think Ants will progress next season for sure, and I think we can always be that top 5 team with Ants and with this kind of commitment from the board. But that's it, and that's kind of that's always been the game with the board. It's never been to go all out, and to be able to really do it, like the Cronkies realized, you have to commit to a completely different level. Look at the level of Arsenal commitment from the Cronkies before they went for it with Arteta, and after they went for it. If you look at the spend levels and just general commitment to staffing in the club and everything, it's black and white, and we might not be as badly run as they were before the Arteta era, but we're not, when we don't have that kind of board commitment.
Still nowhere close, you feel like?
No.
Nowhere close.
So we're maybe gray, if we're not black, we're certainly not white, but we're gray for sure.
We've improved from black to gray. Okay, that's
and I think that's the game also, Jack. I think it's to keep us gray, because then you'll always have enough of a split in the fan base, never to put enough pressure on and so on. But once
Spurs
again,
purgatory.
I'll give him the whole season, Jack. I don't want him to go because there's no answer for him at this point. I really don't think that there's any reason to get him out with this ownership. Once the ownership changes, then we're talking a different game. But I think Ants will progress. But I think also, because to be honest, I don't believe, if you take like the cup game with Ants, I don't believe it. We've seen it every time. Mourinho, Conte, and now Ants, they don't play the first team. I don't believe it's their choice. I don't believe it's not the board pressuring them to prioritize the league. I don't believe it, So I don't think we'll win a cup under him, because it will be the same board telling him not to play the best players if there's an important game in the week and so on.
Interesting. Well, it sounds like he's going to, sadly, in your eyes, potentially fall to the same fate that many in the past have. He's not going to be a what's it called? Not a trendsetter, a trend breaker, right? He's going to be he can't be a trend breaker of Ange. So, Jory,
no, he's going to have the same faith as everybody else that deals with Levy, I'm afraid.
It's an inevitable fate of some kind that will eventually get you. Jory, it's been good to have you back.
Yeah, likewise.
Lots of people I can tell lots of people have also missed you from the chat as well.
Yes. It's good to talk to you, and I apologize for not being like you guys reached out.
I apologize. Dave wasn't here to nod his head as well. You didn't get even you didn't get your full values worth. You could have had Dave as well. Go back and forth with you.
But don't give up on me, Jack. Just reach out to me, and I'll be happily try and come on if I have the time. Yes,
I would love to bother you. So please, I'll text you more often. I'll text you more often for shows and stuff. Big up, Jory.
Okay.
Appreciate you, sir. Have a good rest of your week. Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Big up to Jory, everybody. The Joracle, as people rightfully say, I think makes a lot of sense. Also, though, I think, like plenty of you have before, speaks his mind and puts it in the best way he possibly can. And it will oftentimes ring a bell with people, or will connect with those who have maybe shared similar opinions or have expressed similar opinions. And I think that's what this is all about. Like, my opinion, my way of looking at it is by no means correct, and no one's really is, but we are trying to make sense of a confusing time. I think under Ange, where, I think rightfully so, some doubt could be creeping in, but also even with this team, the trajectory of Spurs, all that sort of stuff, good reasons to question and just have good sort of back and forth. Big up to Jory. Good to see the Joracle back in here. And we're going to keep things moving. I believe it is Sam afterwards. And then we have Alan, Rakdos Madness, and then anyone else who wants to join. I think if I haven't taken down the link already, I might have already taken down the link, everybody. But if you have been saving it, feel free to join and make sure that you want to have your say before we go into the Chelsea week. But let's go into Sam, see what he has to say. He's got all the good gear, Sam, but probably not feeling so good about it now, all that good gear.
Yeah, what's up, Jack? It's a tough one, especially because my manager's an Arsenal fan, so he made a couple of little digs today.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, that's not what did you compare it last season? We lost 2-0 as well at home. Like, was that one worse than this one? How do you feel, in comparison? Is it just a similar feeling of being down and glum?
Honestly, I just feel like we always shoot ourselves in the foot. I think that there's a weird sort of vibe on Twitter between Spurs fans, and I feel like they're also, a lot of fans are thinking like, oh, we we weren't very good, we were naive and all this and all that, which I agree about the naivety, but I think we played well. I don't think that. In all honesty, I was pretty happy with the starting lineup. I thought that I know you guys have been saying you probably wouldn't have started Basuma, but I'm trying to cast my mind back. Like, I think it was after the Forest game, everyone was saying we should give Højbjerg a run against Newcastle. So I feel like had we won, everyone had said like, oh, this is what we've been asking for. And now everyone's like, oh, he scored an own goal. He's crap. He's this, he's that. The classic Højbjerg tropes come out. But I didn't think, other than the own goal, I know obviously the own goal was massive. But other than the own goal, I thought he did probably what he needed to do.
I agree with you. I heard Mia say, like, in hindsight, I heard Mia on her own review said, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Everybody seemed to say they wanted Davies and Højbjerg for this game, and then they didn't play well, and now they're blaming Ange for it. And I actually agree. I just was, I could actually be that annoying person and just raise my hand and say, I really did say don't play Højbjerg, for this game, and don't play Davies. But I agree with you that I think we did play well in the first half. It was just strange that we ended up scoring both of our goals in the second half when we played better in the first half, in my opinion. So
definitely. I mean, you just can't make it up. Like, they had after the first half, they had 2 shots and had scored 3 goals. 0. Like, it was just like they scored with their first shot on target, which every team seems to do it against us. But we just did show that lack of spine at times. I think, getting done with the same stuff we get done with every week. I do think it was a penalty on Kulusevski, and I think that was a massive momentum shift when they got up the other end and score. I thought that was diabolical
Yeah.
from the referees to not even really like. I know they always look at this stuff, but I
Well, they
just
never
felt
do
like
with
that.
Spurs. They never look at
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I mean, jumping forward a bit. I mean, look at that penalty we did end up getting. Referee's less than 4 yards away, staring directly at it, and he doesn't give it. I know maybe you could argue Rice was on the other side of Davies from him and he couldn't see if there was a nick of the ball, but you give that. I'm sorry, you give that. Every other team gets that. And I don't want to be on that classic trope of every fan thinks that the Premier League or the referees have some sort of agenda against them. But it's just so clear to see that after that Liverpool game,
Yep.
we've just been basically shot in the foot every single time. I mean, we get penalties given against us for minimal contact, and then they say it's minimal contact for us.
Yeah. Or red cards, that maybe were red cards, but then the next week you see the exact same challenge, given, and it's not even gone to review or anything like that. And that's what's funny is I've seen decisions go against Spurs, and then you would expect that, okay, well, obviously they'll just use the same logic for when that happens again. And then you see that they don't. And then it's like, it's the exact opposite where you're just like, wait a minute, why is it that these decisions only seem to go against Spurs? Like Romero's red card, for example, like how many times have we seen that challenge, done again and again and again, and now it's not being called anymore, and that sort of example. And even handball decisions, all of a sudden in the beginning of the season, every handball was still kind of being called with a lot of scrutiny, and now we're just seeing guys just like Ashley Young just wave their arm and slap it away and it's not being given. It is a bit odd at this stage, and I don't know, I've grown a bit numb to it, Sam. I don't know about you. It's been so against us this season that I'm not expecting, other than Simon Hooper, my favorite man in this world, other than him, I'm not expecting any favors really anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think like the offside one, I don't know if it's just like over the last few years, it's kind of been drilled into us by the referees and by, social media that offside is offside. Like no one seems to know the rule, especially with this double deflection thing that took it into Mickey's path. It was a whisker offside, if that, and I was at the time just thinking it is offside. But if the rules are the rules, it should have been, if Tomiyasu goes to clear it and makes a mistake, like that should be onside. And I think as soon as that went against us, whether it was fair or not, it didn't feel like it was going to be our day.
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Momentum
anyway.
killer.
I just thought like, oh god, here we go. And then obviously the next time something happens, we get the penalty decision, not go away. They go up the other end and score on a classic Tottenham breakaway, basically.
What do you make of that goal, though? Because a lot of people have said that that's the same goal we've conceded lots of times this season, that ball over the top, over the fullback's head. Of course, it was Ben Davies this time, but people have said that's happened to Udogie, that's happened to Poro. Is there something wrong with this, the tactics there, the fact that it keeps happening?
It definitely has, but I actually think in this specific instance, it wasn't the system, it was the players.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Van de Ven made the initial mistake by going too tight to Romero or Poro, whoever it was on that side. And then Davies, and like, I said in the last show, I like Davies. He must have looked over his shoulder about 10 times to see Saka making a run wide. And my dad and I are just sitting there like, what are you doing? You know what he's going to do. He wants to go that way. And then he gets in the box. And it was almost like, was it Emerson when we played against Wolves and Pedro Neto or whoever, I can't remember who it was, but Pedro Neto cut in on his left foot. You knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he scored basically. Well, I think he passed it along, but all Saka wanted to do was get it on his left foot, and you've just got to show him down the line. So I think that was a not necessarily like a tactical thing. I think it was more defensive errors. And I know I said that Højbjerg had played well, but I think also if Saka had looked up, he'd have seen Odegaard standing in about 10 yards of free space, and he would have also scored. And Højbjerg didn't get back.
I saw that. He was kind of jogging back as well. Like, Odegaard was pretty obviously going to score that, and he didn't seem to make much of an effort to try to get in front of him. Yeah, I know what you mean. Good point out.
I think tactically as well, a lot of people are blaming Ange, and there's obviously like the corners, the zonal marking. I'll never get behind. I've never been behind. Have clowned other teams for doing it, and now we do it. But I thought that, you know, aside from maybe not playing Emerson at the back instead of Davies for that bit of extra pace, I thought he picked the right team. I just think that in certain moments and certain players just didn't quite turn up.
I agree.
We say it a lot about Son, but it's going to happen when they've got the best defense in the league and they play very physically. The big difference between their system and ours is they commit 6 bodies forward, 7 bodies forward, and then everyone rushes back. And by the time we get up the pitch, they're already all back. Mm-hmm. So you're asking someone who's not the biggest frame to try and outmuscle these players. And I would have, I think he had a chance to rectify the one gripe I had with his starting lineup was not starting Richarlison. But I understood why he didn't do it.
He might have also I've heard he might not have been match fit fully or something like that.
I think that's fair, but I think when Werner went off, what was that, like 25 minutes, 30 minutes?
Yep.
I think that was a potential saving grace for Ange to go, okay, I'll bring Rishi on now. And I think that although Johnson did well, like for what he needed to do, like he put in a few good balls, and I think that if Rishi had been on the pitch, he might have actually nodded some in. But I just think that we so clearly needed some sort of focal point and someone to just try and run through, as in physically run through their team, like he did with that, you know, orange card, like shoulder barge that he did. But I just think that was quite a crucial point in the game, because especially when Richie actually came on, within 2 or 3 minutes, he'd already played 3 or 4 passes, little link ups with Son with his back towards goal. I heard you saying earlier with one of the other guests that he looked more natural again, Son out on the left, and I think that would have been a big area for us to, you know, make something of it. I think my main problem though was how bad Maddison was again.
He's getting away with it for me right now, Sam. I don't know about you. My problem is I watch a lot of other teams, and I feel like I'm watching 4 other English number 10s, you know, with other sides in the Premier League having better seasons and better impacts than him. Eze being one, Foden, of course, you know, terrific player. Gibbs White, who's in the middle of a relegation battle and seems to be balling out for them, you know, on a consistent basis. And then even Cole Palmer, the guy who we're about to come up against, is, you know, that's just 4. I could probably find another one if I really want to think hard of, you know, English midfielders who I think are doing far more than Maddison. And when you think about it as well, to go further, these guys also have less of the ball, you know, than Maddison does. Maddison gets a lot of chances to get the ball and try to make something happen. And for me, just doesn't take enough risks.
But I know people will argue about, you know, the low block, it's hard to do stuff against. But I mean, you brought up Foden, for example. Most of the stuff that he's done well this season, I mean, how many goals has he scored this season? Just getting the ball 25 yards out and going, have that, top bins, just smacking it in. And that was something that I thought we were buying with Maddison. The guy scored loads of goals against us exactly like that. So it's frustrating. I know obviously Son as well. Like, we have players who can strike the ball well. We just don't seem to be doing it. And Arsenal, after going 3-0 up, they didn't need to come out. So they just sat deep and invited us. And what I thought was interesting is we actually picked their pockets quite a lot in the midfield. We took the ball off Partey probably 3 or 4 times, and we could have made some serious chances, but we weren't brave enough. And that seems to be a common theme with us. We're not brave enough to take those risks, but then we'll take a risk passing from the goalkeeper to the right back, to the centre back to the goalkeeper when you've got 3 players pressing you. And I'm not against playing at the back per se, but if you're going to be that brave back there, why can't you be brave up the pitch?
I agree. Totally agree. I think someone had said that earlier today. Was it Brad or somebody who had said something like that, where it was like Spurs can be so aggressive and so, brave on the ball when trying to play out from the back. But then the moment it gets in front of the opposition box, all of a sudden they're scaredy cats and, just have no, willingness to even try anything of any kind, either make a run, play a little chip through ball, have a shot on goal, just have a cross, like none of it. It just takes so much, from us, screaming at them to do it that they finally do it. It's a very good point. And someone else earlier had brought up a very similar thing, very similar gripe. I think it was Rufus, actually. Romero, though, I thought he was terrific, Sam. What do you think? Like, this was my take from it. I think he should be our captain, actually, because when I looked at, you said, Richarlison brings that bite, that bit of shithousery. We know Romero does that. But even when I looked at the appeal for the penalty that Ben Davies, Son, and I think Madison was already off the pitch, but Sonny like barely even makes like much of a gripe with the referee or anything. Romero, when he sees Ben Davies gets kicked in the nuts there, he's screaming in Michael Oliver's ear and is just showing that sort of like willingness and that, urge and just that he just cares like more than honestly anybody else clearly on the pitch. And obviously I think Son cares, probably just as much, but just doesn't show it in the way that Romero does. And I think that is part of being a captain, right? Is standing up for yourself, being that brave player. The fact that he even goes higher than Kulusevski to win the ball off of Raya, to like, that was where Kulu was supposed to be. But then Romero was just like, I'll do it for you, and did the pressing for him to win it. I just think all
and that
of these
was a
things.
Haaland finish as well.
It was a brilliant finish. He actually gave the keeper the eyes. He showed them how to do it. But I don't know. For me, that was like, if any little silver lining, that would be it for me, was Romero once again, showing the doubters, how wrong they were. But this guy, I think, should be a captain.
I think I agree with you. I like Son as a captain, but there are definitely, I think Romero is probably a better captain. I think the reason that he's not captain though is the language barrier. I just think that he's not quite comfortable. Like, he probably speaks all right English, but he's not comfortable enough to be that lead man, which is why he's one of the vice captains.
I agree with that. Fair point.
But yeah, I think it's funny. What was it last year? People were tweeting like, "Oh, this guy doesn't care about Spurs. All he wants to do is play for Argentina. Look at him, he's injured, and now he's going out to Argentina to play with them." I wasn't one of those people, by the way. But it's so funny how the narrative switches so fast in football. Going for, like, you can apply it to a lot of players like and their forms this season, but you definitely, it's the way that these like Romero, Van der Ven, Porro, they're playing with so much passion. Pointing to the badge. Fucking, like, just
putting their bodies on the line, like they're
exactly.
willing. Like Romero, I think one time I've seen Romero like take shots like to the stomach, like he doesn't turn away like Dyer does. Like he'll take a shot like directly to the abs. He probably can't breathe for the next 5 minutes, but he still does it. And that sort of thing. Even some of the blocks that he put in, people said Mickey Van de Ven, put out some fires. I think some of the blocks that Romero put in that game defensively should have been goals. Like if it wasn't for him, like. I agree with you. I think these two guys, they show the passion that's necessary. And nowadays, like, I sound like Graham Souness sometimes, with this sort of ageist, sort of remark. But I feel like, you don't get that sort of passion as much from some of the younger players now. And Romero, for me, just class act in that regard. Class act.
I want to ask a question about Romero. And like, I could be completely wrong, but do you not think that he's got some of the attributes that we are looking for in a number 6?
I think he's just a terrific player, technically. Like you look at even that, remember the goal that he missed where he hits it off the post and then he puts in actually a left-footed cross. Like he does like a 360 left-footed cross and it's like a gorgeous left-footed dink, back into the box. I think he's actually, when we talk about the most technical players in our team, I think he's actually up there and people don't think of him. I think he is more skilled on the ball than probably almost anybody else really actually in this team, considering he is a center back. He's probably up there with Porro, the passes that he plays to break the lines. He would be a terrific number 6. It's just that I don't know. I think right now we still need him as a center back, but I see where you're coming from. He would be a terrific number 6. I think he would be unbelievable.
It's true, definitely. And they claim that we're going to be looking for another center back in the summer. So maybe if we do have a little bit more cover, I could be behind him playing as that 6, especially if we don't end up bringing anyone that really fits that profile of a destroyer in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean he's Argentinian. All these South Americans, they've got prowess on the ball from playing in these cages, basically.
Yeah, and he's just a terrific player. Like in, I think every asset. I think him and Van de Ven, you can't get much better than those two. My last question, though, Sam, is sort of on the Chelsea game. Like, do you see us turning it around and being able to win? Like, can you see us winning that game, or are you still worried about how we're going to respond?
I saw someone, I can't remember when it was a while ago. They tweeted about the fact that we have, it's like 4 teams in and around us in terms of like actual derbies that we're their biggest game, in terms of like they want to beat us like more than anything. And it's typified specifically with Chelsea. They turn up every game against us. I think one of the first games I ended up taking my younger brother to was when it was the game where Gazaniga got sent off for that like random karate kick on Alonso.
Yeah.
But before that day, there was something in the air. The fans were so up for it. The atmosphere was so intense. I actually couldn't help but like cry, because I was with my younger brother. I was so proud that he was going to be there for this like big game, and then they just turn up like they do all the time against us. And I want my heart says we're going to go out there and put in a great 3-1 performance, but my head says this is Chelsea at the Bridge. They hate us. The narrative is there for Poch.
It's their cup final, actually. That's how sad it is. It's their cup final. I think for them, it's the only game that matters to them. I think at this stage.
And I do worry about certain like sort of attacking aspects they've got against us.
Yeah,
like obviously Mudryk on that left, although he looks like he can't finish to save his life,
still the fastest guy on the pitch.
Exactly, him and is it Noni Madueke?
Yeah,
they are just going to terrorize our flanks, and Cole Palmer picks up the spaces. He drifts out wide, and what is actually also a bit scary for me is that their centre backs, although I think they're crap, actually are quite dangerous from set pieces.
Yeah. And
you just know what's going to happen. It's going to be like a standard set piece, and Axel Disassi or whatever his name
I know what you mean.
is going to just nod in, and he's going to be grabbing the badge and running around, and it's just going to be painful. Like I do think that we can win. I know I'm being negative about it. I think that we will win. I think it will be a win, but I think it will be very tight and very nervy.
I think that's the right way to look at it. Is they always seem to find a way, but the only reason we could be slightly optimistic is because they are pretty terrible.
They don't have those players of old where you look at them and you're going in and you're thinking Hazard loves a goal against us, Willian loves a goal against us, Marcos Alonso loves a goal against us. Like they had so many players that could be terrible for 90% of the season, and those 2 games against Spurs, they'd score or get an assist.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Sorry, go on.
No. What were you about to say?
I was just saying, I think I'm just scarred of like all these games that we've had against them where I've actually been really up for it, where they've just turned up and we haven't. And the first half against Arsenal, although I think that we were the better team, they didn't have to do much to get past us, and that could play into Chelsea's hands, and that's kind of where I am.
Battle of the soft underbellies, it feels like, between the two teams.
100%.
My argument would be is that maybe we actually have at least an underbelly, where I'm not sure if Chelsea even do have one, with how easily they can lose their heads. And this is a team that fights over penalties, with nothing to play for in the end of the season. It shows where they are, but we're in a very weird point as well. Sam, did you have any final talking point that you maybe want to bring up before I let you go?
I think I've been, unintentionally quite negative.
We lost in
usually,
North London Derby. It's
yeah,
what it is. It's no point in trying to
but
find always the
I
positive.
do think to end, like, I want to end on a positive, and I do think
Go ahead.
that there is something bright coming in the future. I don't necessarily agree with Jory's last point that the board want the managers to focus on the league, because I think if there's one stick that you could really beat Levy with, it's the lack of trophies. So I think that they want whatever they can get, Audi Cup, whatever it is. But I do think that we were unlucky this year in the Cups. We end up drawing a Premier League team in the second round of the first Cup, and then we draw City after drawing Burnley in the first round. Like, we didn't have the luck of the
That's fair.
of the Cup, I think, and I don't think that Ange was lying when he said that. When else am I going to be able to see what team I've got? It was so early on in the season, that Fulham game, and the players that normally let us down. I think that's it. And he needed to see that for himself. But I do think going forward, we'll have to judge it after the summer. I think this summer that passed, where we signed, Mickey Van der Ven and these players, we were optimistic with what we brought in, but there was still obvious that we needed quite a lot more. Same in January, we finally made not deadline day signings. And I think that was a positive for a lot of Spurs fans saw. Timo might not have been the player that everyone wanted, but they could see why we got him.
Yep.
We bring in Dragusin, who for the first time ever was our first choice. And I think there are definitely positives, but we ended that January window thinking we still needed more defenders, we still needed another midfielder, probably a striker, and if they can get even half of those going into next season, and we have just enough backups that if we lose Maddison, who obviously has been crap, don't get me wrong, if we lose players like that, we lose players like Son for prolonged periods, that we have someone that can come in and actually take the game by the scruff of the neck, which is why I feel bad for Gio. Injury prone for sure, and I know Dave always says that he's been here for 5 years and he's had 5 good Spurs games or whatever it is. But he's deserved more minutes this season. I think that's one thing that I would mark Ange down about, not giving Gio enough time, especially with the inconsistency, let's say, of Maddison over the past 12 games or whatever he's been back for. But to end it positively, I do think, as we always say, there's always next year, Jack.
And as the delusional Spurs fan I am, which is one of my favorite things, I don't know about you, Sam, and maybe people find this pathetic about us, but I find it to be awesome, is that even after some of the worst seasons I've ever seen as a Spurs fan, you still always have that conversation with somebody where you do kind of give each other the eyes, and you're like, I do think we're going to win something, like, it's just always that one that makes me chuckle, and that one that makes me laugh is, I remember, like, after the days, Jose gets sacked, everything is terrible, and I still would run into a random Spurs fan somewhere, and they would say, like, you know what, I feel like there's a chance we got a cup next season, and it's just one of the best parts to think about us. Maybe some people think it's silly. I think it's one of the best. Brad Matthews saying you talk a lot of sense. I really have enjoyed you as a new addition to these fan shows, Sam. So I really appreciate you keeping up the appearances and coming on and giving your opinion. Like I said, a game that's not easy to comprehend, or a game that wasn't easy to try to break down. It wasn't black and white. I think this sort of result. So well done to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad, as well. I've always wanted to get onto the Spurs social side without just having to comment and get abused on Twitter. but yeah, I'd like to keep it up. Sometimes I get on late and I miss the
We got
shows,
lives.
and I think, oh crap, I could have got on there. But hopefully going forward, I can get on a bit more.
Appreciate you. Thanks for making the time. Thanks for your
No
patience
worries.
as
Thanks
well.
for having me.
Yeah. Have a good rest of your week, my man. Hopefully get to
Thank you. You
talk
too.
to you with better spirits after the Chelsea game. See you, my
Yeah.
man.
Come on,
Big
man.
up to Sam. Big up to Sam there, everybody. One of the last guests we have. The next one we have is Alan, who will be our closer this evening. I also appreciate that Sam was looking for a positive at the end of it to try to spin. And spin is the wrong word. I think there were positives to take from it. And mine was actually Romero. That was my positive. I just think he showed me a lot of character. I already knew he's a brilliant player, but in games like that where times are tough, it's hard to bring that confidence in yourself. I think that guy is one of the bravest people I've ever seen play for this shirt of recent years. Really did show that he has just an elite level mentality. And I'd like to see, like Ange say, more players with a similar mindset, similar mentality. And we're going to finish things off with Alan, Rakdos Madness. He's going to be our closer this evening. And so we're going to get our last bit of therapy for the rest of y'all. Really have appreciated everybody who's stuck with me throughout this show. Apologies, Dave isn't here. He's just still making his return back from London. And again, I had to go a little bit earlier because it's a beautiful, beautiful day out here in Brooklyn. And I am looking forward to finding some time to forget about Spurs, later on this evening. And we're going to go with our last bit of therapy here, the closer, Alan. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Jack. How are you?
It's good to finally be with my closer here, Alan, where we can try to make sense of it all. And I think just sort of, talk it out, figure it out. And, it was a tough one for me because I don't think we played especially terribly. But to find yourself 3-0 down at halftime, you have to be frustrated. There has to be something that's going wrong if you're 3-0 down at halftime. But weirdly, I think Spurs weren't as bad as sometimes the scoreline might suggest.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to repeat what everybody said. I agree about defense. I think Ange set up. I just don't think Davies was the right person. Knowing that it was Saka that he was going to have to mark, I think that was the wrong person to mark Saka. And although I think I saw a comment, Saka was fairly quiet, but one of his 2 shots on goal was a goal. And, and I think that's a problem. But I think I was talking to Eltel Cockerell earlier, and he was mentioning something that I thought was poignant. Was had we scored, taken our chances and scored, it wouldn't be so bad. And disallowed goal aside, I think while everyone else was concentrating on defense, and I agree with what they're saying on defense, I think also our offense was not so stellar in the game. We had more possession, but we lost, but we were 3-0 down. We had a ton more possession, but 3-0 down just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that is in part our midfielders aren't getting the ball to where it needs to go for our offense. And I think our offense just wasn't as clinical as they need to be. Son in the middle, I think, is wrong. I just don't see it. All game, aside from the goal, which was a penalty, I don't see Son even in the equation.
Yeah,
I
didn't
think
make much impact. Yeah,
almost nothing. I think Kulu did okay. I saw him. He was fighting. He kind of had that Romero spirit. Maybe that's the thing that, like Andrew was pointing out, he's looking for that Romero spirit in everybody. And I think Kulu, he may not be the fastest, but he will really use his body. He will get in there and he will make plays happen from nothing. And I think that's something that's missing. And he was doing a lot of that in the middle, I noticed, not so much on the offense. So I'm wondering, is Ange gonna? I would like him to change things up a bit. Maybe you put Kulu in the middle. Maybe you, maybe like you
Should he
said, we
play
were talking
instead of Madison through the middle? What do you think? Like, are those maybe is Kulu worth playing instead of Madison? Give Madison a break and then Kulu through the middle.
Yeah, maybe. I actually think that they should have started Lo Celso over Madison. I think Madison is kind of like just someone that knows he's not being challenged in practice. There's no one really challenging him in his position, and I think he knows he's going to be the starter, and I think that's a problem. No one should feel like that they should be starting. Everyone should feel like my position is up for grabs at all times. It's kind of like us at work, no one is above termination potentially. And I think that these guys need to feel the fire under their feet and think I could be replaced at any time. I don't think Madison feels that way, and I think his play is showing that. I think in the beginning he was trying to showcase who he is to the Spurs fans, but now that we kind of know who he is, I think it's been a while since he's been injured, and I think someone like Lo Celso, who's been sitting on the bench a little too long, we need to showcase him more. Even if he were to be sold, you want to showcase those players that even if we aren't going to keep them, to show their star power. And I think like just keeping on the bench, giving him 10 minutes of the end of the game time is not enough to showcase him in both play style for us and as a player that we might want to that is worth selling on for a premium to another team. Whereas like Højbjerg got a lot of play yesterday. He had a gorgeous header. I just wish it was for the other side. But I think.
Do you think that's a sign of like a weird double standard or something with Ange, where he's playing a guy that we know is going to be leaving in Højbjerg, but then the other guy who we're not sure about his future, Lo Celso, he just continues to ignore and let Madison play instead? But he's been happy to throw Højbjerg in instead of Basuma or instead of Sarr or whatever, right, to send a message or whatever what he's trying to do. But with Madison, he's not willing to do that from the outside.
Well, there is a bit of a double standard, I think. I'm not sure why Højbjerg started yesterday and Sarr didn't, because I think Sarr can be just as physical, but I think he's someone more like a Kulu or a Romero who will make something out of nothing. I watched Højbjerg make some mistakes in passing, and of course, the goal that was the ultimate winner. And I think, I don't know what it is. I don't know if Gio is just not practicing well or if he said something bad. I don't know why he's not getting any game time other than it's Madison in front of him. But Madison really needs to be challenged, I think, for him to perform better. It's not doing Madison a service. It's not doing the team as a service just to automatically assume. I think Manchester United have a similar issue with Rashford and Fernandez. I think that they are players that are going to play no matter what. I think Fernandez will show up on the day, but Rashford oftentimes doesn't show up on the day. And I hear their fans saying the same sort of thing. Like you shouldn't be expected to play every game to start. And I'm wondering if that's the inflexibility of Ange with his system, with the way he sets up, with the players he puts in. I think I've kind of said it the whole season, more towards the end of the season, now that we have more experience with Ange, he just seems so stuck in his ways. And I think for us as a team, to advance and to do better, Ange needs to evolve a bit as well. I don't think nothing in this world does well stagnant. He really does need to evolve a bit. And with regard to the high line, didn't make sense to have a high line, a 3-0. Ben Davies is not fast enough to take on Saka, not clever enough to recognize what to us as viewers seems obvious, watching the ball go over, Davies looking over his head and then kind of running and trying to chase him down. It doesn't make sense. although I don't miss Conte per se, I do miss his passion on the sideline. I think the players can be inspired. When I played when I was younger, it was always inspiring to have a coach kind of yelling, hearing your name, telling you where to go, what to do, kind of, as the conductor. Where Ange is pretty silent, and it seems like he's just allowing the players to do their thing and just expect that they will know what to do in the moment. And I don't know that that's working. And I don't, maybe that is a function of buying new players who buy into the Ange system, but I'm not looking for players to coach themselves during the game. I'm hoping that the coach can coach the players during the game.
Do you feel like certain players are perhaps losing that confidence, or some of the things that they used to say about Ange in the beginning of this season, all those glowing words and tributes that they had, some of that they might take back some of those words now, or they might feel like slightly differently? For example, like Madison, even though I've had a lot of problems with his performances, he's being dragged off and being subbed off now more recently, and maybe some other players are perhaps losing some confidence in Ange.
I think the inflexibility. Or do you think the squad is
still behind him? Do you think the squad is still behind him?
I think the squad is still behind him. On the whole, I think they are still behind him. I think there are more players confused about what he's looking for, because I'm not sure on the day in the games he's not doing enough conducting. He's not kind of, except for, if you notice, we're a second half team. And I think that's in large part because Ange takes that time during the half to explain what he's looking for, but then he's silent for the next 45 plus minutes. And I think the most successful coaches, Klopp, Pep, and now Arteta, they recognize when in the moment things need to change. And, things needed to change earlier in the game. If we had another 15 minutes at the end, maybe we would have come back and tied it up. I think that whatever he said to them in the second half made sense to them. I just think that as players, they're probably looking for more guidance. I don't know if and that may not be Ange's way, and which is why he's looking for players who are less reliant on his micromanagement. But I think that there is a balance between micromanagement and just management. I don't feel that Ange is doing much. He may as well not even be standing out there. He could have someone else standing out there if he's just going to be silent. He could just sit in the stands and enjoy the game as a spectator. And I don't want that out of a coach. So I'm hopeful that he can evolve a bit. And I think as he evolves a bit, everyone else will see, oh, look, my coach is evolving based on the needs of the game and the needs of the players. Maybe I should be doing exactly the same thing, adaptability. And I think that they see, well, Ange just wants one thing. It's not working. What the hell do I do?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was gonna switch gears. So if you had, a slightly, similar point that you wanted to make, I was gonna switch topics or a different question for you.
I was just gonna say that it seems like, again, Son in the middle, I think it's obvious to most of us, it's not working. It's just not. I don't, I think Richie is ready to go. He came in for Ben Davies, I think. So I know he's trying to push more, but came in later. I think Son is the person that needs to be on the wing, and should have put Richie in. I've mentioned it before. Richie's kind of like a magnet for stuff to happen, even if he isn't the person in the middle of action. Someone is always like right on top of him, because in a moment's notice, he can make something happen. He draws fouls and
causes chaos, creates chaos, type of guy.
Yeah. And Sonny doesn't do any of that. Sonny's not drawing the fouls. Sonny's not forcing players to pull away from wherever to mark him. He's just kind of wandering around, and it's not and I'm wondering if Sonny is also just as confused by Ange's system as the rest of us. It's predictable in that we know it's the high line, but just because it's the high line doesn't mean that there isn't unpredictability in the way we play, but we're very predictable in the way we play. And I think that is a reflection on Ange.
When it comes to the rest of this season and into next season, I feel like, people that want to sack Ange now, Alan, I don't really see the point, because I think Spurs are pretty much solidified where they're going to finish. Like, I don't expect United or anybody else to surpass us in our 5th position. So it's now kind of the rest of the season. It's just for Ange to iron out some of these problems, some of these issues. And then is it really next season that we start to judge him, a bit more harshly when it comes to how he does? Because I think, if the team looks a lot better next season, then clearly they are listening to him and they are trying to improve. If it's a bit of a Ten Hag scenario where all of a sudden, they're actually worse or kind of still the same problems persist,
Right.
I think that's when we start to, ask more questions of Ange. So how do you think, the rest of the season unfolds? Do you think it ends kind of on this sour note, or do you think, he can turn things around and, kind of breathe some confidence back into the fans?
Again, I think Ange doesn't like to be. No one likes to be questioned. Let's be fair to Ange. No one likes to be questioned. You can see it, but in his interviews, pre and post match, he's kind of prickly with the reporters, and he does not like to be questioned by them in any which way. He kind of shuts it down, and I'm wondering if his inflexibility is tarnishing the team and their progress. Just because it worked in the Scottish league or in the Japanese leagues doesn't mean that it's going to work in the Premier League exactly the same way. And I have to hope that in the rest of the season, if we are going to be in 5th and we can't catch Aston Villa, that he extends himself a little bit, try something different. What's the worst that happens? At this point for the rest of the season, try something different, put players in different positions that they seem to be, like Kulu in the middle or whatever, trying to disrupt what is become fairly stagnant in the way we play. The way we played yesterday is pretty much the way we played the game before, which is the same way we played the game before that. So in that respect, it's predictable. And I don't want our coach to coach our guys to be predictable, because then we're going to get killed all the time, in next season. I think with Chelsea, I'm a little concerned about the Chelsea game. I watched the game against Aston Villa, and they had a start similar to our start yesterday, where they were 2-0 down fairly quickly against Aston Villa. And then in the second half, they showed resilience and came back. And I thought that, it was a bar. It was an arm push, and so I get why it was a penalty, but that's contested. But they almost won the game.
Yeah, they did.
And they almost won that game. And so I'm a little concerned with how they're going to start, because I know pretty much how we're going to start, because it's the same way we've started every game. A little slow, fairly predictable. We're going to have a lot of possession, but we're not that clinical up front. I just don't like. I feel like I'm on repeat. That the team is on repeat. I just don't want the team to be on repeat,
or even repeat the same problems in a game like Chelsea as well. Back-to-back huge derbies, back-to-back huge London fixtures that mean a lot to the fans. And if we just see similar things happen again, it is hard for us to watch, and it's hard for us to swallow.
Yeah, taking aside the fact that it'll be Pochettino we're playing, this team we're playing against, and the sort of the hurt you feel every time you play against them, because I miss Pochettino to a certain respect. He was the coach that I saw when he first started, and I kind of miss his animated self on the sideline. He that's what I'm looking for in Ange. Ange is so stuck I'm hoping that he can evolve over the summer and next season maybe do something he's not used to. He's asking a lot of our players to do stuff they're not used to doing, but he himself is kind of frozen, not willing, and he's not being in any shape or form malleable. He very rigid, and I'm hoping that Arteta in his first season, they came in 8th, but he obviously changed it up so that they were moving up. I know, again, the second season they didn't do that great, but now they're in first. So I'm hopeful that Ange can show the same kind of flexibility while still maintaining integrity, but flexibility. Because if he goes in this summer, buys the players that are quote unquote Ange style players that he wanted, and we're still playing exactly the same way with the same kind of results where we wind up 5th or 6th, I'm going to question his style and question him a bit more than I did this season, where I could, you only use the excuse. He doesn't, not that he's using it, but that we can kind of make an excuse for Ange in saying the players that he has right now are not really Ange players, aside from a few, but when he gets more players in that are his style of player, then we can expect more. So then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to expect more. And if he doesn't do it, then give him a full, I think give him a full year. I don't like cutting the coach mid-season. I think it's just a disruption. We wind up with a Stellini Mason kind of situation again. And that's like the last thing I want. I just want him to be more flexible, and I want more. We're asking for a lot of passion. He wants players to be more like Romero. I think we need to see that starts from the top. We need to see that kind of passion out of our coach, and not behind closed doors in the locker room. We need to see it on the pitch. I think that's big. He's like a general, and he needs to stir his army. That the Tottenham army. He needs to show some passion, rouse the fans, get everybody up, start coaching on the sideline. I think I honestly think that would make a difference.
Yeah, because if the football isn't doing it for the people, then you'd like to see, maybe some more character or personality being shown that could also be able to convince some fans, that, this is the right guy, that this is the one who can, convince fans that this is the one to back. I know what you mean. I do miss, actually. I am a big fan of the pointing and the shouting of managers. It's probably one of my favorite elements of the game. And I wish Ange did a bit more. I could agree with that. I could. He is very inspiring, though, at halftime. We clearly come out the gates much better and much stronger in the second halves of the game. So he often seems to save up some of that energy and some of that sort of passion like you're bringing up, maybe more for behind closed doors for kind of the for the players only. And I guess it'd be nice to have a bit of that ourselves, to witness.
Absolutely.
Any sort of final talking points, Alan, before we wrap up this whole thing? Don't need to put you on the spot.
No. I do think we need to be more clinical. I think we focused a lot on defense, but I think offensively we were also not so great. Mm-hmm. We can't have so much possession and yet put out so little. If we're going to have the possession, we need to make it meaningful. Arsenal showed us that you don't need to have a majority of possession and still win the game. We need to be more clinical. And I think that's a function of the midfield he chose yesterday, I think was not the right mix of midfield. And I think the starting forwards were not the right 3. I think Kulu was good, but I think Sonny needed to move over, and I think he needed to start Richie. And I think we may have seen a different game. I don't like to dwell on the referee decisions, because I felt like that was a goal. VDV's goal was a goal. I think the line, if you look at the line, it's just, you start to nitpick those things. And I think that those, like I think I've heard Ange say, you score more goals, that's not even a concern anymore, and there were times we could have shot the ball at the goal, and instead we're dribbling around in the box and passing it around. And I'm thinking, what the hell are they doing? Why are they constantly passing in the box? What are they looking for? What are they waiting for?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I think I would rather them kick and completely miss than keep passing and passing and passing and lose the ball and lose possession. It just doesn't. Something's got to change, and I'm hoping Ange was willing to be a part of that change over the summer.
I feel like they're taking more risk often by continuing to pass it sideways and back and forth instead of often taking that shot or playing that pass or trying to at least test, the keeper or the defense, by just recycling it amongst yourselves forever. You're actually inviting, I think, more pressure eventually, that the team will just hit you on the counter instead of trying to test them a bit more often. Definitely agree with you there, Alan.
Let me ask, who would you start in the front three against Chelsea?
I think Richarlison, if he's fit, has been needing to play for the last 5-6 games. It's just he hasn't been fit, so we have been pigeonholed with that. Kulusevski, I think, starts again because of what he was able to do again with that hold-up play. I think with only Richie, you do run the risk of having only one guy that you can actually, have, hold up the ball and, carry the others up the pitch. And I think having Kulu and Richie at the same time is useful. And then Brennan Johnson has been probably his best as an impact sub this season anyways than he really has been as a starter. And then you throw Sonny back on the left because that's his most natural position, and we'll see him back to his best. I feel like he's really, like someone put it perfectly earlier, he's scared of his own shadow, it looks like right now. And that's, I think, a lot to do with the position he's been playing and having to be just surrounded by trees of center backs all the time that are pushing him around and making life difficult for him. I don't think has ever suited his game. I think if you give him that time where he can face his man, face his defender, he will cause a lot more problems than he will when he's with his back to goal. Whereas Richie is someone who I back with his back to goal. Like, he will cause you problems that way if you try to play that way. So it's been needed for a while now. I hope Ange sees that as his best forward line. It just feels like he hasn't been able to use that for a while now because of injuries and because of just players not being available. So I hope that is what he goes with. If he doesn't, I'd be, again, a little concerned or, raising some eyebrows, because I am feeling like that's what we have to go for. Also, Madison, just lastly, Madison, I think, needs to be questioned, needs to be dropped. I just don't really see what he's offering as the actual creator, because when you talk about these low blocks, these stubborn defenses, it's what the number 10 is paid all the big bucks for. It's why they have the nice haircut. It's why they got all the tattoos and the hot girlfriend and all that sort of thing, is because they are the creator. They are the guy who can see things that other players cannot, or they can play passes or create things that other players simply can't. And Madison, for me, just has not been doing that for weeks now. Like, you wouldn't even, if you were a complete neutral or someone who'd never seen Spurs play and you were going to guess who the creator or who the number 10 is in a team, you wouldn't think it's Madison with the way that he's been playing. You would think it's someone else. So that's I think, our issue with the clinical nature of this team. But Alan, looks like a beautiful day where you are. I'm about to enjoy a beautiful day over in Brooklyn. It's not
sunny
been as
San
nice
Diego.
of recent, and it's a nice 80 degrees. I prefer it to be a little hot. I'm kind of like a lizard, so I like it to be hot and dry. And it's just even though it's also the worst thing for my skin, because I'm freckly, very fair skinned, but weirdly it's kind of what I prefer. Nice, hot, dry sort of day, and I'm gonna go off and enjoy it. Take my mind off the Spurs. I appreciate you giving me the therapy, as have so many others. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you, Alan.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Alrighty, man. I hope see you next time after the Chelsea game, hopefully in better spirits.
Yes, thank you, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Good man, Alan. See you, my man.
Take it easy. All right, bye.
I'm jealous of how it looked in the background of Alan, because it looks similar for me right now, but it's not always that way every day. So I am going to take advantage of it. Everyone, really do appreciate so many of you who came on and had their say. Nice, healthy lineup of guests who bravely put on, a face to try to explain what was a very difficult game to understand and try to get your head around. But I do really appreciate so many of you who, like Alan, waited very patiently to come on and have their say. So many others as well. Thank you to Ian Cook, as well as to Jory, grabbing a membership. Sebas Wolf, you absolute legend, Sebas, Jason Bell, the one and only, and Lazy 8 and Moondog. You guys have been collectively on this channel for, I think that's close to nearly 100 months of, I think that is over 100 months of support collectively between you, Sebas, Ian Cook, Jason Bell, Lazy 8, and Moondog. So just want to say a massive thank you to you guys, because it is ridiculous, the numbers of, support that you guys have been doing for so long, just years at this stage. So we really do appreciate it. Thanks to anybody that tolerated, my Yank voice and my logic, and my try to, making sense of this game for over nearly 3 hours now. So I appreciate if you haven't, completely lost patience with me at this stage. But yeah, I think we're going to try to pick ourselves up from this one. It's one that I really am frustrated by, not as much. I understand that Dermot and others were saddened. I was kind of more frustrated because it felt like we had played well and we had, looked like set ourselves up to at least give Arsenal a good game. Not saying we would have won or even gotten a draw, but I think we really just once again shot ourselves in the foot and just made it an impossible task to try to get back into it, and made it a good stab, made it a good effort, but still some problems to try to figure out, still some problems to make sense of. But Dave will be back. Not sure what could be coming out tomorrow, but we'll try to put something out for you guys. But yeah, we're getting prepared for the next game, the Chelsea one. I appreciate you all. Thanks for, supporting the channel. Thanks for coming on and having your say. And I will be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange, I trust over here. And we never stop. Come on, you Spurs. See you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your days. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Everywhere we go.